Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to the audience present here, and good afternoon to our eminent speakers in China. We will begin with the recitation from the Holy Quran.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahus samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad.
I am Nabila Jafar on behalf of the Institute of Regional Studies. Welcome you all in today's seminar on very pertinent topic, CPEC challenges and opportunities, the way forward. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is the flagship project of China's Belt and Road Initiative. The successful operation of CPEC holds a huge potential for the development and prosperity of the entire region. Both China and Pakistan are committed to the high quality and successful implementation of all the planned CPEC projects. In this seminar, we have invited eminent speakers from China and Pakistan to discuss the challenges, opportunities, and the way forward to untap the full potential of CPEC. We are grateful to Mr. Hassan Dawood Bhatt, CEO, KP Board of Investment and Trade, for providing support in organizing this event. To formally begin, I request President IRS Ambassador Nadeem Riaz for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Nabila. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a good morning to everyone in Pakistan and good afternoon to our participants in China. When Nabila brought this topic to me, I said that, we should try to get the best speakers possible. And I'm very happy that we have a very eminent panel over here which will talk about the various opportunities and the challenges which we have in CPEC and what can be the way forward. Well, as far as the Pakistan-China Economic Corridor is concerned, many analysts describe it as a corridor of opportunity. The second phase of the project, which is now underway, there are many apprehensions and expectations, and these expectations are there along with the challenges as well as the opportunities. CPEC, in my opinion, represents projects of connectivity, infrastructure development, industrialization, energy, port developments, maritime connectivity, human development, and all these are essential for regional development and prosperity. The second phase, it is spoken about, is all about expansion and development and process of industrialization in Pakistan, during which 4 special economic zones are being focused with special attention given to textiles, information technology, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, and renewable energy. Pakistan over the years has done improvement to its legal system, and the BOI has done a lot of work to ensure that there is a one-window operation for foreign investors. The government has also made extremely investor-friendly policies for vehicle manufacturers, for mobile manufacturing, special economic zones, and a number of regulations have come out in this respect by the government. However, with all these concessions and new policies, a number of investors are still apprehensive that the policies fall short of their expectations. So I think this is a challenge which is there for CPEC projects. Though the government states and has been saying for a long time that there is 100% equity and people who invest, they can take back their profits. But when people come on ground to make the investments, they find that due to the 18th Amendment, they not only have to deal with the provinces, but also with the provincial structures. I've highlighted all these because these are the apprehensions which are expressed by the people when they actually talk to you about the various CPEC projects. But I'm sure the Honorable Minister will be able to address this misgiving. So I've been following your comments at the various forums where you have been speaking, and I leave the floor to you to actually elaborate on these very initiatives by the government. Now, despite the there are apprehensions regarding the security, and this security apprehensions are there, which are internal as well as external. So these have to be addressed. Along with this, you also have an unstable Afghanistan. And anyway, when you talk about regional stability and you talk about taking economic prosperity forward, it can only take place when the regional countries are also on board. With these very short comments, I would leave the floor to honorable panelists who are experts in their field. We have fortunately with us the former ambassadors of Pakistan to China, both my senior colleagues, Ambassador Masood Khalid, Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi, and then we have Hassan Daud, who has been, I would say, a mentor to us. Like, you know, he has been telling us, and when Nabila came up with the concept of holding this particular seminar, he was extremely helpful in telling us and reaching out to various speakers. I will not stand between you, the honorable guests, and our panelists. So thank you very much. And I am sure that today's event will be able to clarify a lot of things for the people who are here, as well as the people who have joined us online. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Many thanks to Mr. Muhammad Asfar Ehsan, Minister of State and Chairman Board of Investment, for gracing the event with his presence. We are also thankful to all the panelists and moderators for joining us today. To proceed further, I'll hand over the floor to our moderator for this panel 1, Ambassador Masood Khalid.
Honorable Minister of State and Chairman Board of Investment, Mr. Muhammad Asfar Ehsan, Ambassador Nadeem Riaz, President of the Institute of Regional Studies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much thank you IRS and Ambassador Nadeem Riaz for giving me this opportunity to moderate this session. It's an important topic, CPEC, now that we are seeing the second phase of CPEC starting. So I think, and the theme which has been selected for this particular panel, way forward, challenges and opportunities. So let me take about 8 to 10 minutes to share my thoughts with you. Well, CPEC has now completed about 6 years of its existence, because from my standpoint, the real work on CPEC started in late 2014 and early 2015, after actually the visit of President Xi Jinping to Pakistan in April. Before that, there was, of course, strategizing the project, conceptualizing it, and the feasibility studies, financial studies, technical studies, so that process, and setting up of the joint task force, this and that. So now CPEC has completed its first phase of execution and envisaged as a cluster of 1+4 areas of cooperation. You would know that 4 areas of cooperation were originally selected: the power sector, transport and infrastructure, Gwadar and its allied infrastructure, and the special economic zones or the industrial cooperation. Now, when we talk of the progress, from my perspective, I think the progress has been steady, but it's a mixed scorecard. Out of 4 clusters, which I just mentioned, the power sector has done quite well in terms of meeting the energy shortfall. And in fact, if I'm not wrong, now we have a surplus power in the system. And the transportation sector has also done relatively well in terms of some mega projects, and now the work is going on the Western alignment. So I think by and large, the progress is all right. As far as Gwadar is concerned, Gwadar was slow in the beginning, a new port being developed, but I think now, as I understand, the work is picking up. Industrial zones, I think the best commentator would be Hassan Dawood Bhatt Saab, because he is now in the lead to set up this Rashakai economic zone, and he could share his perspective, but I think that we have lagged behind on that count. One should give allowance to the fact that CPEC was a mega project for both countries when it started in terms of its magnitude. So it was natural that it would face some hiccups and challenges. And the elections in Pakistan in 2018 and induction of a new government also perhaps necessitated some kind of a review of the project. So that also caused some slowdown. And then, of course, we had this COVID pandemic, which created serious logistical impediments in terms of transportation of experts coming from China and equipment and machinery. I have seen the fact sheet, which has been recently issued by the Ministry of Planning. So far, 46 projects have been completed or are under implementation, with a net Chinese investment of 25 billion. So this is the scorecard, that in 5 or 6 years, you have practically $25 billion of investment in your system. And of course, as projects go along, more investment will come, hopefully. About 5,320 megawatt of electricity has been added to our national grid, with giant projects like the Sahiwal and Port Qasim's completed in record time. This is also important. Sahiwal project was completed, I think, in less than 2 years. And I personally know the problems it faced. Another major project is the completion of Lahore-Matiari transmission line, which according to Chinese ambassador will cut line losses from 17 to 4%. Another achievement. In the transportation side, more than 500 kilometers of motorways and highways have added to interprovincial connectivity. And of course, you can see the domestic tourism has also gone up. And as I said, the Western alignment work is going on. In Gwadar, I think the airport is ongoing. A vocational institute, I think, is also more or less on board. Hospital also being constructed in a free zone. But coming to the SEZs, the progress has been slow. We have not been able to really optimize this aspect of the CPEC so far, but I believe that the work is now picking up. The second or the next phase of CPEC is much more ambitious, with new areas added to its scope. You know that agriculture, IT, science and technology, tourism, industrial cooperation, etc. So I think that both sides will need to pay more attention to its seamless implementation. CPEC's extension to Afghanistan and its intended spread to interested regional countries and foreign businesses will also require more hard work and policy streamlining, both in Beijing and in Islamabad. CPEC has been projected as a pilot project of BRI. So both countries have a huge stake in its success or failure. Its failure would mean the failure of BRI. While China is proactively implementing BRI and its economic outreach now extends to several continents beyond its borders, CPEC is yet to gather a critical mass for its takeoff. For Pakistan, CPEC should be treated as a gift. And this is what President Xi Jinping said when he came here in his address to Parliament. And it's also a manifestation of Chinese friendship towards Pakistan and its vote of confidence in the economic potential of Pakistan. The CPEC may be a new concept for us, but I see it as a reflection of our two countries' desire to establish physical connectivity for promotion of trade and commerce, investments, people-to-people connectivity, and tourism. And as you know, there is some history. When President Ayub Khan went to Beijing in March 1965, Chairman Mao Zedong asked him, how about connecting Pakistan and China through a road? And President said, 1965, no logistics, very difficult, treacherous terrain. And President Ayub Khan said that it will be extremely difficult. And Chairman Mao said that no, nothing is impossible, and we'll do it. And then both countries got into negotiations to plan this project. So I think that KKH is a precursor to CPEC, a forerunner of CPEC. CPEC dovetails perfectly with China's strategy of developing its Western and Central regions, and BRI's extension to Central Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Europe, and Pakistan's own orientation towards geoeconomics in its foreign policy. One could imagine the dividends Pakistan and our region would get once this region is economically integrated with China through BRI and CPEC. So this is the real opportunity before us. CPEC is a vehicle for Pakistan to become self-reliant. Now, this is very important. We have been cribbing all along that Pakistan goes to IMF and these lending agencies and friendly countries for bailing us out. But I think if we really seriously approach CPEC, it can help us to march on the road to self-reliance in due course. But of course, hard work is required. And CPEC would also help Pakistan to broaden its scientific and industrial base. And keep in mind that our community, student community of 28,000 students in China who are receiving specialized training and academic pursuits, they are a available pool for Pakistan to utilize their experience, their language skills, and their know-how of Chinese culture to come and assist in these projects. I think one can really, when the opening up of China started in late 70s and early 80s, Deng Xiaoping sent scores of Chinese to study in America and Western universities. That pool is now steering the economic development process of China. So we have these 28,000 students, and I think about, if Ambassador Nagamara, I'm not wrong, about 5,000 of them are doing their PhDs in high-tech fields. So that pool can be utilized by Pakistan to follow the path of self-reliance. Another important point to note is that CPEC was started when no country was prepared to come and invest in Pakistan because of serious security situation. China came, we went to them and we said that, we have a huge energy shortfall. It is affecting domestic consumers. It is affecting our exports industry. So please help us. And that China came forward and did this investment. Another refrain I hear from time to time, all advantage will go to China. I mean, this is such a laughable proposition. CPEC projects are right now being implemented in Pakistan. They are being executed in Pakistan, not in China. So the investment is coming from China. That money is not going and being fed into Chinese system. It is being fed into Pakistan's economy. Please keep that in mind. So our economy is getting a boost, whatever boost. And CPEC is not the only corridor where China is investing. China's investment profile in Africa, Latin America, Central and Eastern Europe is an evidence of the appeal of BRI and the countries welcoming Chinese investments. What are the challenges? Very briefly, we all know some of them have been pointed out by Ambassador Nadeem Riaz. But most importantly, I think CPEC has become a victim of geopolitics. The success of CPEC has activated actually forces, hostile forces against China and Pakistan, which have geared up propaganda to create a wedge in our bilateral relations. It is extremely important to counter such negative moves through a joint strategy of Pakistan and China. And when President Xi Jinping spoke to Prime Minister Imran Khan, I think in October, he did mention the global climate, the international challenge for Pakistan and China to remain firm as far as their relationship is concerned and jointly face these challenges. Secondly, it is the other issue which is interlinked with this negativity is the security of the Chinese personnel and their assets in Pakistan, which is of course a foremost priority for Pakistan. But I think if there are any loopholes in the implementation, they need to be addressed comprehensively. Thirdly, to rebut and counter this negative propaganda which we hear, and a lot of money is being poured by these influential countries and hostile elements. They have created funds, they have created propaganda machinery, they are utilizing media outlets to create doubts about debt sustainability, about the environmental things, a lot of these issues. So I think a joint media strategy is necessary to rebut this propaganda, and soft power diplomacy, cultural interaction between Pakistan and China needs to be intensified. A common perception is that the CPEC has slowed down. This perception needs to be countered effectively. More efforts are needed by the government to address this perception. Sometimes we see half-baked stories and some irresponsible statements coming from government functionaries, which are neither helpful to foreign investment nor helpful to Pakistan-China relationship. So I think there is a need to guard against that tendency. Chinese companies working in Pakistan are facing various issues. The recent decision to streamline the visas is welcome, but I think the process needs to be, more smooth and streamlined. Because I was going through this paper, and this is dated 22nd December, and there's an article here which says the types of problems the Chinese companies are facing. Then, sir, most importantly, and I've been saying this, and I don't know what the heading, but I hope that the minister would, respond to this point. 18th Amendment. Federal and provincial governments, not fully in line on how to attract the foreign investment. I think Council of Common Interest as a vehicle is a mechanism I'm talking of the issues which are confronted to attract the foreign investment. I think BOI can play a very effective role in terms of preparing a template which identifies uniform set of incentives available in all the regions and provinces of Pakistan. It's a common, minimum common denominator around which BOI can work. All the provincial governments should be seated and say, when a Chinese investor goes to Sindh or Balochistan or Punjab, he should be able to hear the same story as far as 10 different incentives are available, whether he goes to Balochistan or he goes to Sindh. Those 10 incentives are uniformly available in Pakistan. I think that can be worked upon, and that will enhance investors' confidence. And two more points. Recent decision to delay the completion of about 5 power projects falling behind the commissioning dates is not helpful, in my view, in addressing the perception of the slowdown. Then the delay in the capacity payments to Chinese companies will also hinder investors' confidence and is not in line with the vision of geoeconomics. And this is a contractual obligation I think we need to meet. Whether A government is in town or B government is in town, I think we should have clarity on this issue. A media report also suggests that about $900 million worth of investment in SEZs did not materialize due to non-resolution of issues. Now, this is a serious issue which needs the government's attention. And finally, I think approval and licensing procedures in provinces and in the center need to be streamlined, and really, hurdles, whatever exist, should be removed, because Chinese investors are available now. They are keen to come, and as the minister was telling us, he was in Lahore and there was very good response. So that response is still there. What we need to do is, what we need is to capitalize and optimize on that response. Thank you very much.
So you will. Okay. Thank you, sir, for very comprehensive and insightful remarks. For the keynote address, we have Honorable Minister of State and Chairman Board of Investment, Mr. Muhammad Asfar Ahsan. He's also a member of the Board of Director of Institute of Financial Markets of Pakistan, a subsidiary of Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, among his many attributes and achievements. He has invested over 2 decades in connecting businesses and thought leaders from around the world to facilitate inter-industry and industry-government relationships, facilitate investors and ensure ease of business, improve Pakistan's international competitiveness, bring in investment in all sectors of the economy, and facilitate and contribute to the country's socio-economic development. He is also the founder of Corporate Pakistan Group and the Nutshell Group, under which he initiated the Nutshell Forum in 2003. Now I invite the Minister to the podium to give his keynote address.
Thank you. President IRS, Ambassador Nadeem Riaz, Ambassador Masood Khalid, Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi, Vice Admiral Iftikhar Ahmed Rao, my friend Hassan Daud Bhatt, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good morning and ni hao. First of all, I'm very grateful to Institute of Regional Studies for inviting me here And without any hesitation, I want to say that in the presence of two senior practitioners and doers for China, Ambassador Masood Khalid and Ambassador Nahmana Hashmi, my presence here as keynote speaker is very inappropriate actually, because I'm just a student of CPEC, but I know that I'm here as the Chairman Board of Investment, and I will try to do justice, and I will share the official narrative of Board of Investment regarding challenges and opportunities related to CPEC. Day before yesterday, we hosted the CPEC B2B Industrial Cooperation Investment Conference for the Punjab province. A few months back, we hosted the same conference for KPK province, where Hassan Daud Bhatt was also there as the CEO of KPK IT Investment Board. And this conference was attended by, day before yesterday, over 600 delegates, including 70 Chinese investors. And we hosted B2B sessions also for 7 priority sectors. And the response was overwhelming. Ladies and gentlemen, with the advent of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor in 2013, both countries embarked on a journey of shared development with focus on mutually beneficial projects for a win-win. As CPEC is the flagship project of China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and is a framework of regional connectivity, it will not only benefit the two countries, but will also have a positive impact on the region. The phase 1 of CPEC pertaining to the early harvest projects of transport, infrastructure, and energy have been almost completed, and the foundation has been laid for the phase 2 of CPEC. Industrial cooperation. The genesis of industrial cooperation goes back to the inception of CPEC and reforms the basis of this bilateral cooperation. My dear friends, the first phase of CPEC required leading role of the governments, while the second phase calls for enhanced role of industrialists, the private sectors, and the business communities from both countries. Here, the role of governments would remain that of a facilitator. But having said that, the government still has an arduous task of devising effective policies, laws, and efficient infrastructure to facilitate B2B and people-to-people linkages. It is significant to mention that the concept of industrial cooperation under CPEC revolves around the establishment of SEZs, special economic zones, along the corridor, forming industrial clusters, providing necessary infrastructure and utilities, all with the support of a legal framework that also includes special incentives for attracting foreign direct investment in the country. Besides SEZs, B2B joint ventures and industrial relocation from China are also essential pillars of industrial cooperation. As alluded earlier, the dynamics of the current phase of CPEC are demanding in nature due to the extensive role of private enterprises of effective business-to-business collaborations from both countries. Ladies and gentlemen, special economic zones were established in many countries as an economic policy tool for enhancing the acceptability and credibility of industrial transformation policies, attracting domestic and foreign investment, and for the opening up of the economy, besides numerous other spillover effects. At present, we have a total of 22 notified special economic zones in Pakistan. Currently, out of the 9 CPEC SEZs, 4 are at an advanced stage of development, namely Rashakai SEZ in KPK, Allama Iqbal Industrial City in Punjab, Bostan SEZ in Balochistan, and Dhabeji SEZ in Sindh. In order to fast-track the development of these SEZs, the federal government has ensured provision of utilities to the designated zero point of these SEZs. Last week, we had a detailed meeting with the Prime Minister, and his special focus is also to work on war footings to develop all these 4 priority SEZs. My dear friends, it is noteworthy to mention that besides Pakistan's liberal investment regime and the attractive fiscal incentives in the SEZs, The government has also launched conducive policies such as electric vehicle, mobile manufacturing, and construction sector policies, sole enterprise, spatial economic zone, regulations 2020, and SEZ, zone enterprise admin, and sale, lease, sublease of plot regulations 2021 to increase investment in Pakistan. Similarly, for investors facilitation, Board of Investment has also announced the SEC MIS module that is aimed to act as a one window for SEZs. This module assists the real investors in getting admitted into the SEZs without worrying about any middleman role to arrange the transaction of any exploitation. Ladies and gentlemen, Board of Investment is making every possible effort to make our SEZs globally competitive. However, the real challenge lies in the populating these SEZs with a special emphasis on attracting FDI for export-led growth. The essence of industrial cooperation in the CPEC lies in the industrial relocation from China, which has also been envisaged in the CPEC's long-term plan. As the sunset industries in China are being pushed out due to overcapacity, rising production costs, and environmental factors, there lies a huge opportunity for Pakistan to target these industries. This is where I would like to accentuate that the role of private sector comes in. Joint ventures between Pakistanis and Chinese enterprises in the need of the hour for colonization of the SEZs and to foster the process of industrial cooperation. Keeping up with the demands of industrial cooperation, Board of Investment in collaboration with the China Council for International Investment Promotion has recently developed the Pakistan-China B2B investment portal to populate the data of Pakistani companies which are worthy of JVs with interested Chinese companies and vice versa. Esteemed guests and panelists, it is significant to mention that the industrial cooperation chapter of CPEC is all-inclusive in nature and open for third country participation. All SEZs, including CPEC SEZs, are open for investment for all investors, whether domestic or foreign, with equal treatment. Therefore, both countries should devise a streamlined mechanism to engage third countries effectively to reap the benefits of CPEC. The diplomatic missions of Pakistan and China around the world must be taken on board to promote the CPEC project for a positive narrative building and a win-win for all. Ladies and gentlemen, it is noteworthy to mention that the early harvest phase of CPEC was governed by a framework agreement which resulted in the success and timely completion of the projects. However, it is also imperative that a concrete framework on industrial cooperation must also be in place, whereby its future course of action is jointly devised by the two countries. I feel delighted to share the Board of Investment and NDRC have agreed to elevate the existing MOU on industrial cooperation, and negotiations are underway to finalize it. The framework will rejuvenate the process of industrial cooperation with a streamlined plan of action, defined timelines, and set objectives, thus bringing tangibility to CPEC's current phase. My dear friends, business-to-business collaborations are highly dependent on effective people-to-people ties. The confidence between the common public of the two countries will also bring them closer for business endeavors. This is where the role of media comes in the backdrop of negative narrative building on CPEC, particularly from the West. It goes without saying the effective communication strategy on CPEC may also be formulated. The positive image building of Pakistan and the marketing of CPEC projects to rest of the world is imperative at all levels. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by affirming that government of Pakistan highly values the role of the private sector and business community in the sustainable development of the country. It is also pertinent to mention that the world of opportunities will open by setting the fundamentals of industrial cooperation under CPEC with a special emphasis on B2B joint ventures. In the end, I would once again like to thank the Institute of Regional Institutes for inviting me to express my thoughts on the matter that will surely pave way for industrial development in the country. Thank you. Pakistan Zindabad.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman BY. I think he has aptly highlighted the need for business to business cooperation, B2B cooperation in the next phase of CPEC. And the fact that this meeting was held in Lahore 2 days ago, where more than 600 delegates and
we are hosting one chapter for Pakistan as well, for all the football.
Sizable number of Chinese companies were also there. So this reflects the interest with the Chinese SMEs and business community have in the market potential of Pakistan. Thank you very much, very enlightening. And so I hope conceptually we are on the right track. The challenges in implementation of the policy. I would now like to request Mr. Hassan Dawood Butt, who is the CEO of the Board of Investment in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. He has been associated with CPEC right from the very beginning in 2013. So his experience is unrivaled. And now I'm sure that he would also share some information as to what is going on in Rashakai. Mr. Butt, thank you.
Board of Investment. His way of doing things is different from most of us, and he, I think, can be the champion and ambassador of bringing investment in Pakistan. My two bosses are here, Ambassador Nagmana, Ambassador Masood Khalid. So since you all know I'm a project management specialist, so I will just present my business case for CPEC. It will just be a business case like we present in public sector enterprises, and then I'll leave it to you whether we need CPEC or not. You decide. This debate has been happening from 2013, and I think time is there. Just now we say that we are entering next phase of CPEC. I think we should start entering the next phase of our discussion also. By the way, I forgot to say salam to my professor also. Professor Thang, assalamu alaikum. With this said, I will take about 15 minutes to highlight few facts, and most of the data that I will present will be from 2019, because 2020 data is little bit subjective because of COVID and other restrictions that we had. Up next, Karman. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, and especially the scholars, please don't take pictures. Just I'll give this presentation to you. Understand the fact what we want. Pakistan is going to be 100-year-old in less than 30 years, ladies and gentlemen. And each year we need 1.3 million additional jobs on average each year, as the number of working group is going to be to around 4 million to 5 million by 2035. And also remember, by 2030, which is the project end date, and I'm sure it will extend, but as we speak, China is going to have 6G, which is going to be 1,000 times faster in terms of communication that we do right now. So therefore, in order to address these challenges, मैंने आपसे कहा था तस्वीर ना खींचे, मैं आपको presentation वैसे दे दूँ. A strong innovative economy will help address all these issues. Unless we have, and remember also, ladies and gentlemen, CPEC is not here to clean all your dirty linen. आपके जो issues हैं, वो business attraction के beside CPEC हैं, आपने वो करने ही करने हैं. वो you have to address these challenges in order to be, and I will also request the minister to invite Justin Lin Yifu, because when he came, he's now the advisor on BRI to President Xi. When he came here in 2017 and again in 18, and his book on structural economy, he is clearly highlighted. And if you speak to any Chinese, he would tell you that Justin E. Fulling is the authority. That 800,000 jobs worth of industry is ready for. It's not me saying, it's Justin E. Fulling saying. Also, next slide, please. I think Prime Minister has clearly stated his vision for CPEC. And there should be no doubt about it that CPEC is a great opportunity for Pakistan. And CPEC connects us to China, which is one of the biggest markets. But I would just like to go to the next slide and like to highlight what Deng Xiaoping said. And it does not matter whether the cat is black or white as long as it catches the mice. And at this time, we need to catch the mice. And also remember, there's another famous Chinese proverb is to attract the phoenix, build the nest first. Unless you have a sustainable, durable nest where the bird can be brought to rest, I think, and that when I saying this, I draw the analogy for attracting investment. I think we need to build the nest first. Next, please. These are few facts, and you all have to understand how the world is changing. As of now, the contribution to the global GDP of United States is 24.32, and for China is around 14.3. But having said that, go to the next slide, please. These are the number of countries which are doing trade with China, and similarly, the number of countries doing trade with United States of America. As we speak, 124 countries are doing trade with China, and only 56 countries are doing trade with United States. Volume is different, but number I'm highlighting in front of you. Go to the next slide. And these are the changing trend for all the youngsters who are sitting here. Look at the number of Chinese enterprises in Fortune Global 500 and the United States enterprises and this number is growing. And I'm sure today this number is totally different. Next slide, please. And this is not me saying, this is Elon Musk saying about China and how Chinese do things. You don't have to build a narrative for CPEC. It's already there. Aapko shakuk khatam hone ki zarurat hai. The world is aware of the China's and the way that Chinese dragon is actually contributing to the world's economy. So this is how, and 1,500 workers construct a railway station in 9 hours in China. They might take 9 days or maybe 9 months in Pakistan, but this is how they do things. And this is how the challenge is to work with them. So therefore, we need to build our capacity and potential. Next, please. And this is the Belt and Road Initiative. Please remember, if you go and study any of the long-term plans of any of the regional countries and also beyond, these key pillars which BRI has are actually similar. People, policy coordination, people-to-people bondage, facility connectivity, financial integration, and unimpeded trade. And these things actually are contributing towards, next please. And we do not live in between three stakeholders, but we live in between three engines of growth. And their contribution to the economy is, you all are, therefore, it is very important that Pakistan should understand its position as far as the regional and global trade is concerned and leverage that. And I think China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a good tool and a good instrument for us to be where we actually should be. So all in all, times are changing and the world is transforming, and Asia remains at the epicenter of 21st century transformation. This is happening, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not. Asia is now taking economic decisions after a very, very long time. Economies are growing, middle income countries are taking these decisions, and therefore it is important that we remain relevant to them. US-China trade war, I also think, and COVID will be stimulus for new relocation of investment, because when I was studying project management, I remember my professor telling me, having more risks is not bad. Not having a mitigation plan is bad. So challenges, no problem for project managers like us. But if you do not have a plan to mitigate those, then it is a problem. So therefore, don't get swayed away by the number of challenges that you hear and see. Just remember, if you have a good plan, you will address all these challenges. And therefore, please remember, this stimulus is happening. enterprises, especially multinational enterprises who are working in China, are looking for new destination, and you have this competition. Laos is there. I've been to Laos. I've been to Cambodia. These small countries, or yaad rakhiye, these countries are also now choking up in terms of investment, because there's a capacity of a country to attract investment and actually to work on it. So now Pakistan, and I believe also that 2022 is an extremely important year for Pakistan as far as CPEC is concerned. Most of the projects in Gwadar will be delivered. Most of the projects like Rashakai, inshallah, will be delivered, and I'll highlight those. Remember that I've written about this, and my PhD thesis was on this. CPEC is the buckle of the belt, and it will remain the buckle of the belt. And the belt, I'm sure you know, is the Belt and Road Initiative. Next, please. Within the Belt and Road Initiative, 137 countries are already there. 37 international organizations are there. $6 trillion. I'm just, trying to give you the data and numbers. And why is CPEC important for us, and how can we address the challenges that we have? And this is actually working against the protectionist approach. It is more of regional integration. It is helping Pakistan actually to address the challenges that we have in terms of economy. Next, please. These are the region-wise FDI, and I would, Minister Saab just highlighted, and in some of my following slides, I would highlight, and this data is taken from Chinese website, not my data, although I have my own archive for this, but I'm just trying to highlight the kind of research the Chinese have done on Pakistan. And these are available in the archives of Planning Commission, in the archives of the Board of Investments, just using this data and how Chinese have actually. So this is how the region-wise FDI of China and BRI country. Next slide, please. This is based on annual report of China. When the Premier of China gave his report, these are the sectors in which Chinese are actually looking for joint ventures. These are the areas where they're stepping out, going out as the government's direction, and up. You take any one of them, Pakistan is relevant. Either it's aviation and maritime, it's automotive, construction based. These are relevant to Pakistan. Next, please. Piche jaiye. The Minister Sir was highlighting, and I will give this data to him. Piche jaiye. These are the numbers of Chinese companies investing in Pakistan from 2013 to 21. This is the number. This is authentic data. Next, please. And these are the sectors in which they are actually. And this is also from Chinese embassy's website. So not my data. So this is authentic. So these are the areas, they are actually contributing. And I think the narrative that is being built is false. Next, please. So now coming to CPEC next. These were the targets which were given initially for 2020. The first target was to remove bottlenecks, make those roads. The next target was for 2025 for period expansion development, in which we were supposed to have SEZs. Yes, we are lagging 2 years, but please remember, ladies and gentlemen, there was lots of novelty involved when we were working and there were a lot of public-private partnership and novelty, public-private partnership, new ideas, inflow, outflow. So the first 2 years were actually, if you say wasted, were used and consumed for actually understanding each other's way of working, each other's policy, how Chinese would work. And I think this next year, hopefully, and with the new chairman, I think we will have a lot of headway as far as Dhabiji is concerned, as far as Faisalabad is concerned, and Rashakai, I promise you, is going to be a place to visit. And then lastly, the third target was period of maturity. And for this, I think I would urge all the excellencies sitting here to highlight the importance of ML1 and how vital it is for actually changing the paradigm of this. Next, please. I'll skip this because the Investor Sub has highlighted this. Next, please. So now we are moving from G2G to B2B, and there will be discussion on in domestic market, industrial park, labor affordable and available, skill improvement. And these are the areas in which, and there will be to and fro, there will be new ideas, new people, or business to business interaction always is challenging at the first stage. But then when the stage is set, things happen. So now We are going through those notions. We are going through that interesting time. And hopefully next year, you will see a lot of activities happening the way that the minister has highlighted, because their interest is there. Chinese, likewise, Pakistani business community has a lot of expectation from us and also from the China. Next, please. So this is the trade, and why I'm highlighting this, and I'm trying to kill the narrative of East India Company here. These are the countries which are doing, and this is data of 2019. These are the countries which are bordering China, and they have disputes with China. But business is business, ladies and gentlemen, and cup of tea is cup of tea. Look at the volume of trade that they are doing with China. Look at the deficit that they have with China. And perhaps this should also let us, should convince us that trade with China is so important, and it is the, and Malaysia only, because they export a lot of stuff to China. Next, please. These are the areas in which we are looking for investment and, for export-oriented, import substitution, technology transfer, value addition to the things, especially for Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where we have lots of natural endowment and minerals and mining sector. And we want to try, and also in agriculture sector, attract new investment and work for this. Next, please. And also, could you go to the, what incentives that we are crafting? We have done a lot of research, comparative analysis with Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, India, Bangladesh. And therefore, we need incentives that are efficient, performance-based, harmonized with national investment policies, non-discriminatory, backloaded, regionally competitive. We also sometimes argue about 18th Amendment and also why there should be one synergy of policy. But I think the one thing that we all need to understand is the hunger for having investment in each of the provinces. And therefore, when we work with Federal Board of Investment, it creates a lot of support to us. It gives us a lot of encouragement, especially in development of SEZ. And as far as working in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, I do not see it as a challenge, but also something that is actually helping us grow faster and more. Next, please. Could you go to the next slide, please? And therefore, the key success factor should be development of infrastructure, human resource, streamlined procedure, political commitment, linkages. And this reminds me again of Deng Xiaoping, who said, we will cross the river by touching each pebble. So it won't happen overnight. You have to cross the river by touching each pebble incrementally, step by step, phase by phase. Next, please. So I will skip this slide on the SEZs, but Rashaka is doing fairly well. Hopefully, we will have more, because new things are also happening. We now have a SEZ portal, thanks to Federal Board of Investment, new ideas. SEZ policy is now being reformed because it was given in 2013. Next, please. Next, Rashakai is a joint venture between China Roads and Bridges and KPSMIC, which is our economic zone development company. And we want to develop our market and have a sustainable SEZ in long. Next, please. And in terms of the development cost, we have done it in 3 phases, and out of the 1,000 acres, 770 acres are the total leasable. Next, please. And these are the areas in which we are actually trying to work. We had our challenges because of COVID. There was no interaction with the Chinese. It was all on Zoom, no travel. There were a lot of travel restrictions which are still there. So therefore, perhaps the lag had its reasons. Next, please. I will just take 2 minutes on Gwadar because we need to understand how important it is in the overall economic activities that we are doing. Next, please. Please remember, for sustainable development on land, development along the coast is imperative. Unless you develop the coastline, or 1+5 model in coastal development was there, and perhaps we left. Next, please. And these are the projects which are happening in Gwadar, and each one of them, and as I said, next year will be an important year for Gwadar also. Next, please. But also, what I would like to just highlight is how we are working on the long-term plan of Gwadar based on Shenzhen's basic model and looking at our geographical position, energy channels, fishery resources. Next slide, please. And then looking at it in a regional perspective, working on the development goals, and from there looking at the transportation needs that Gwadar has. And based on that, next please. We want to work on a short term, and we should work on a short term, medium term and long term plan in fisheries sector, in heavy industry, in light industry, business, logistics and tourism. And I think a lot of work has been done in doing this research with the Chinese. Collaborative effort has been done. And I think it's just about the time that we set policies for Gwadar, set up a short-term, medium-term, long-term plan, and perhaps leverage all these sectors that are a lot of investment is actually bringing interest. Next, please. This is Gwadar Airport. So just look at it. It's a fantastic design, and perhaps in next 3 years, this should be up and running. Next, please. Gwadar and Hambantota की बहुत सारी discussion होती है. I think this has outlived its life. Gwadar is totally different project. It's based on belt operate and transfer, where this is depth activity tab. So sometimes we, relate things unnecessarily. And I was doing one research on Hambantota, and I was surprised to see that Pakistani is doing more research on Hambantota than the Sri Lankans. And this is how we do things, perhaps we are more inquisitive. Just quickly on the opportunity industry, and lastly, I will highlight few slides. Socio-economic development is happening. $1 billion US for 3 years. Isme COVID ki wajah se there were few restrictions and we could not actually materialize. But I think, as I said, next year is going to be important. Next, please. Co-marketing, co-branding as far as the agriculture cooperation is concerned. Inshallah, I see we are working on red chilies in Mardan. We are working on some other projects with the Chinese. We are even working on tea sector with the Chinese. So inshallah, I see a lot of work happening in agriculture sector, and we're trying to attract these agri-based industries in Rashakai so that they can come. I just had a discussion with Chinese. Next, please. So next, so long-term plan, I think Minister Saab is here. He would work on this. और मैं आपको एक interesting बात बताऊं. Then when we went first in 2016, and Investor Saab were there, and he would remember, we went with 37 SEZs. But then Chinese said to us that you should, have less. So then we came to 9, and Chinese were actually suggesting 4. So if you look at the things which are happening now, I think they were right when they said 4. So next, please. I would just like, because the next panel is on security, I will not highlight too much on security because sometimes it is not taking the true spirit, but just one thing. We need to build our capacity. We need to improve our cross-cultural environment because ways of doing things are different. So we need to, in our universities, in our higher education institute, study more cross-cultural leadership, cross-cultural project management, and perhaps our productivity needs to be enhanced. Or I did one research just recently comparing ourselves with Bangladesh, and most of the indicators, Minister Saab, on the ease of doing business, we were ahead of Bangladesh. The only factor where we were lagging was the productivity part. Their daily productive time was better than us. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, and I leave this for discussion for the next session, that security is not a challenge, it's a risk. If you have a good risk mitigation plan, you can address this. But remember, do study too much of security and too less of security, both. Please remember this. Sometimes in the sector that I work in, investment sector, this cowboy style security perhaps would also not be just aapke aage 4 gaadiyan, piche 4 gaadiyan. When you are, sometimes when you go to Vietnam, you do not see. I think we need to embrace more technology in addressing these challenges. But next panel can discuss this. So with this, I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan Dawood Barsab, for a very insightful presentation. Before the moderator announces the next speaker, let me just make a small announcement. Minister Asfar Ehsan Saab is leaving. We thank you on behalf of the Institute of Regional Studies for coming here and sharing your valuable thoughts with us. I announce for the audience that we have running tea in the corridor hall. You can go and take your tea. And thank you.
I think a very useful and very informative presentation by Mr. Hassan Daud, and the facts which he gave clearly establish where China stands in terms of connectivity, in terms of BRI, in terms of its global economic footprint and regional footprint, which is growing. So I think Pakistan needs to decide as to which is the winning side. And then Pakistan has to position itself to be on the winning side so that it takes full advantage of its geoeconomics vision. Thank you very much, Mr. Daud. Now, I would request Professor Dr. Tang Menching, an old friend of Pakistan, a personal friend also, and I'm so happy that he's here. He's the director of the Center of Pakistan Studies at Peking University. He has contributed immensely to Pakistan-China friendship. He's a professor of Urdu, and so is his wife, Professor Kong, who has done remarkable work in making this Urdu Chinese dictionary. So, Professor Tang, ni hao, good to see you. Please.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. पिछले दिनों दाऊद साहब ने मुझे बताया कि सेमिनार हो रहा है. उन्होंने कहा कि आप जरूर कुछ बताएं, और मैंने कहा कि आजकल मेरी कुछ मसरूफियत है. शुरू में मैंने इनकार कर दिया, तो फिर मैंने सोचा कि आज खास तौर पर सफ़ीर मसूद खालिद साहब, सफ़ीर हाशमी साहिबा और सब यहाँ बैठे हुए, और हमारे ये अजीज़ दोस्त हैं, और पूरे 2 साल इनकी मुलाकात नहीं हुई. और हसन दाऊद भी मेरे बहुत अच्छे दोस्त हैं. ये हमेशा कहते हैं कि आप तो हमारे प्रोफेसर हैं, हम तो शागिर्द थे, लेकिन आप तो हमारे उस्ताद हैं. तो सीपेक होते हुए तो 8 साल हो गए. तो अगर 2013 तक ले जाएं, उस वक्त सफ़ीर मसूद खालिद साहब भी बीजिंग में थे. तो मुझे याद है उसके बाद उस वक्त से लेकर 8 साल हो गए, बीजिंग यूनिवर्सिटी सेंटर फॉर पाकिस्तान स्टडीज हर साल सीपैक के मौजू पे एक सेमिनार किए जाते थे, और इसके अलावा हर साल सीपैक के मौजू पे जो चाइनीज़ हुकूमत NBRC की तरफ से कोई ना कोई प्रोजेक्ट, और वो मुझे और हमारे सेंटर भी देते थे. और यानी 8 साल में हम कुल 60 रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट हमने पूरा किया. और पिछले दिनों में मार्च में हमने सेमिनार करवाया था, और उसमें मिस्टर मसूद खालिद साहब भी तशरीफ़ लाए थे, और मिस्टर नमाना साहिबा भी तशरीफ़ लाए थे. और इस सेमिनार में दाऊद साहब भी बहुत तावन करती. हम दोनों उनके यानी मिल के ये सेमिनार करवाया था, इसलिए इस मौके पर फिर हसन दाऊद का शुक्रिया अदा करना भी चाहता. और आज दाऊद के कहने पे मैंने एक मौजू कर दिया है कि चाइना पाकिस्तान एग्रीकल्चर कोऑपरेशन के मौजू से. लेकिन जो कुछ हमारे जो चाइनीज कुलिक भी यहाँ भी बैठे हुए हैं, मैं तो सोचा कि इन लोगों को थोड़ी तकलीफ न दें और मेरी अपने शागिर्द और उर्दू में इनका नाम नैला जो है, मैं इनको तकलीफ देना चाहता हूँ। वो मेरा पेपर जो है अंग्रेजी में, और ये पेपर जो है ये सफ़ीर मासूद हालिद साहब इसकी नज़रसानी भी कर दी। ये पिछले साल मैंने और बल्कि पाकिस्तान में अखबार में भी छपवाया था। तो फिर नैला मेरे जो PhD तालिब जो है वो मेरी जगह ये पेपर वो पढ़ेंगे। तो फिर आप लोग सुने, अगर इसमें कोई कमोबेशी हो, कोई गलती हो तो फिर हम मिल के डिस्कस कर लें। मुझे भी उम्मीद है कि इसी पे खास तौर पर इंडस्ट्री जून के मौजू पे मैं भी अगर मौका मिला हम इस मौजू पे भी एक आप लोगों के साथ भी डिस्कस करना चाहता हूँ। अच्छा, तो फिर आप लोग, तो फिर मेरा पेपर जो है ये नैला पढ़ रहे हैं तो आप लोग सुन।
ख्वातीन और हज़रात, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मेरा नाम नैला है और आज बहुत खुश हूँ कि मुझे ऐसा मौका मिला है कि मेरे उस्ताद प्रोफेसर ठांग के नुक्ताए नज़र आपके साथ शेयर करूँ। And I'm going to switch to English for now. And here the topic is China-Pakistan Agricultural Cooperation under the framework of CPEC. Data from the 2018 to 19 fiscal year indicates that agriculture contributes to 18.5% of Pakistan's GDP and provides 38.5% of total jobs. Of total agricultural output, plantation output accounts for 38.7%, and the livestock accounts for 57.79%. So it is fair enough to say that agriculture serves as a major propellant of Pakistan's economy and an important element of Pakistani people's livelihood. So going forward, agriculture will be one of the key cooperation areas of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Now let's go briefly through the significance of China-Pakistan Agricultural Cooperation. China-Pakistan Agricultural Cooperation is the basis for a stable Pakistan's economy. Agriculture is important to Pakistan's national economy and is demonstrated by, first and foremost, it is a pillar export industry, earning a big portion of foreign exchange for Pakistan. And besides, it's supporting other sectors of economy to grow. About 60% of the aggregate agricultural supply goes to households for consumption, and the rest 40% is purchased by other economic sectors for further processing. So arguably, a stable Pakistan's economy is impossible without its agricultural development. What's more, agriculture is a sector with comparative advantage in Pakistan, as it can bring economic benefits and reduce poverty within a short time. And the agricultural cooperation between our two countries embodies eagerness to help friends in need. Pakistani government attaches importance to agricultural production and has taken proactive measures to reduce its costs while improving efficiency. So for instance, Pakistani government has earmarked funds for introducing full industrial change of agricultural production factors and supporting scientific research on agriculture, reducing agricultural taxes and fees, initiating water conservancy projects, as well as improving the level of mechanization of agricultural production, which have yielded positive results. However, according to the 2016 population census across Pakistan, the population was still growing rapidly at an average annual rate of 2.4%, presenting a higher demand for the nation's agricultural modernization. China-Pakistan Agricultural Cooperation is the key to overall collaboration between the two countries. China and Pakistan enjoy considerable cooperation potential in various fields, including agriculture, rural development, and enhancing the capacity of farmers. Moreover, we are yet to tap into the cooperation in agricultural technology. And agricultural cooperation is now a priority for the mutual collaboration between our two countries. By investing in Pakistan's agriculture, many Chinese enterprises have benefited from initial success, and bilateral agricultural trade volume has been steadily increasing. China would encourage more enterprises to invest in this field, as well as encourage more agricultural research institutes and experts to carry out cooperation with their counterparts in Pakistan. And now here are some ideas for China-Pakistan agricultural cooperation. Agricultural cooperation under the framework of CPEC should suit Pakistan's agricultural development conditions. So by adapting to local conditions, building on strengths and avoiding weaknesses, we can align the development of food crops and that of the cash crops to mutually reinforce farming and livestock husbandry so that a virtuous circle could be formed. And first, let's look at the basis of the existing China-Pakistan agricultural cooperation. We two countries have a long history of cooperation in agricultural information exchange and training, agro-processing, agricultural machinery manufacturing and maintenance, pesticide management, etc. Our cooperation is built on solid foundation under the framework of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor to promote related industry development along the corridor. Our two countries' agricultural cooperation will help Pakistan to break through the bottlenecks of agricultural development and boost Pakistani agricultural products export to China and to other countries. Besides, Chinese enterprises engaged in deep processing of agricultural products, agricultural machinery, and agro-industry will consider to invest or to set up factories in Pakistan. Leading enterprises among them will also explore the possibility to invest in agricultural industrial parks along the corridor and build such parks into demonstration platforms of China-Pakistan agricultural industrialization cooperation. And to promote the plantation of sea rice in Pakistan through agricultural cooperative enterprises might be one of our next steps. Sea rice plantation will be promoted especially in coastal areas in Pakistan. We will recommend and support scientific research institutes from China, like Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences and so on, to carry out experiments on popularizing sea rice in Pakistan, which has been proven successful in China. This special kind of rice can grow in saline land like tidal flats. It can absorb salt and ameliorate soil, thus is able to promote a virtuous ecological circle. Besides, it can be used to feed livestock. So this kind of rice contains more protein and other nutrients, and is especially suitable to be cultivated in southern part of Sindh and Balochistan. We are also thinking about setting up agro-technology enterprise in Pakistan, which will seek cooperation with local landowners in establishing farms to further promote our projects. And then let's come to promote Pakistani agriculture towards modernization, industrialization, and market orientation. Focusing on northern part of Punjab and Sindh, we will promote agricultural modernization and industrialization, as well as agricultural products export in the region. For agriculture to develop, we must capitalize on advanced technology and combine it with both traditional and modern agricultural practices. As we know, Netherlands has built a tulip base in Pakistan to meet market needs in Pakistan and the wilder region. We can learn from this and build Islamic food industry parks to promote floral landscaping, leafy and fruity vegetables, and their deep processing for the Middle East market. And to promote the development of Pakistani livestock husbandry. And Pakistan enjoys a good base for developing livestock husbandry. It accounts for 10 to 12% of total GDP and 38% of total agricultural output volume. Apart from that, Pakistan is also leading milk producing country, and its share of large livestock per capita is among the highest in Asia. China enterprises can take an active part in Pakistani livestock husbandry and relevant deep processing projects and seek to extend the industrial chain so that products can not only satisfy Pakistani market, but also be exported to other countries, such as countries in East Asia and Middle East. And last but not least, here Professor Tang would offer some advices for China-Pakistan agricultural cooperation. We two countries are highly complementary in agricultural resources, market, and technology. To deepen bilateral cooperation under the framework of CPEC would help to promote agricultural development in Pakistan and also to mitigate trade imbalance between our two countries. And first, we should strengthen cooperation on agricultural science and technology and agricultural equipment. Pakistan attaches great importance to cultivating agricultural technology experts and developing relevant technologies. Many universities are conducting agriculture-related research, and these universities can serve as a platform for China and Pakistan to cooperate on agricultural science and technology. Our two parties should, for example, distribute modern agricultural technology through remote learning, set up modern agricultural parks and agricultural skills training centers in Pakistan, work in Pakistan National Agricultural Research Center, breed new cotton varieties, and conduct other agricultural science and technology partnerships for adverse weather conditions resistant crops. For example, crops better adapted to drought. Led by provincial level agricultural sectors in Pakistan, our two parties could capitalize on modern agricultural technology to promote intensive farming so as to increase grain output. China would like to provide agricultural machinery and technology that suits Pakistani geography and agricultural production conditions and organize necessary trainings. We would also encourage Chinese enterprises to engage in agricultural machinery manufacturing, assemble and maintenance through investment in Pakistan, so as to improve industrialization scale of agricultural machinery in Pakistan and maximize social and economic benefits of China-Pakistan Agricultural Cooperation in equipment manufacturing. And secondly, we should plan agricultural development in line with local conditions. Pakistan's agricultural resources are geographically specific in that water, temperature, solar radiation, and soil varied significantly among different provinces. Different climate zones have specific crops suitable to grow, so we should plan agricultural development in line with local conditions. For example, in Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and other northern parts of Pakistan, conditions for plantation are unfavorable, production methods are outdated, and production efficiency is low, but potential to develop livestock husbandry in these areas is greater than that of agriculture. So we need to put emphasis on developing livestock husbandry there. Besides, we may also consider to establish seafood, canned meat, and other non-staple food processing projects in Gwadar. Punjab and Sindh, on the other hand, are relatively flat in landscape, and we may consider to establish vegetables, flowers, and fruit supply chains, as well as juice and jam factories in Lahore and around surrounding areas. Products manufactured here can be exported to Middle East and East Africa, which are close to Pakistan. It will help to increase Pakistan's foreign exchange income. And we should build an export base for deep processed agricultural products, relying on improved agricultural infrastructure. Development in economics tells us that relying on improved national energy and transport infrastructure is an efficient way to improve aid efficiency and benefit people by fostering local agricultural development, especially by improving water supply and irrigation system. The construction of Pakistan's artificial irrigation system is well developed. However, some canals need to be renovated to optimize operational efficiency. China and Pakistan may consider to start by improving infrastructure of irrigation, transportation, and warehousing of Indus River Basin, and then gradually introduce advanced technology to achieve specialization and skill management, with an aim to build Punjab and Sindh into a deep processing base of agricultural products like wheat, rice, mango, pomegranate, and others that can be exported to China, Europe, West Africa, Southeast Asia, and other countries and regions. Thank you all. आपको बहुत शुक्रिया.
International cooperation through regional association, as you have very rightly referred to the 18th Amendment, will bring national integration. As the minister has also referred, that they are going to be, associated with the provinces, the federal units, permanently. And this will also strengthen the principles of federation, and which will further strengthen the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Well, I would like to be enlightened that what about the societal response to this project by the Chinese people? Thank you very much.
Since you have served over there as Minister of Pakistan, I think we come to your question.
But we have our Chinese friends on the line. So Professor Tang, thank you very much for your input, very useful. And I would request you to share your paper with the Institute of Regional Studies so that it can fully benefit from the points you have made. Thank you very much. Now, the next speaker is Ms. Lin Wang, another friend, a journalist. She's a journalist and specializes on CPEC, BRI, and Chinese overseas investment. So, ma'am, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Masood. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And it's really my honor to be here today. I would like to share my screen with my PPT slides. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah, thank you. Today, I'm very honored to be here. And here, I would like to, first, there are many of my old friends here in Pakistan and in China. I'm very happy to meet again two ambassadors and also Mr. Daud and also Mr. Professor Tang and Professor Zhang here. And first, I would like to update my recent development. People know that I'm a journalist, so I went to Pakistan many times and also report CPEC from April 2015 with President Xi's visit. And I also report a lot of BRI. So in the past 2 years, I did not work as a journalist any longer. Now I'm doing my PhD program at Tsinghua University. I'm studying China's overseas investment and also the policies, but my interest still focus about Pakistan, CPEC, and many other issues. And so today, I would like to share some of my recent findings about BRI and also other global connectivity initiatives, that is BRI, B3W, and the Global Gateway. And I think when we talk about the next phase of CPEC, we should also look at the greater and the bigger picture in the world. Are there some changes, and are those changes coming to the way that will be advantage to us or disadvantage to us? First, I would like to use this theory of convergence to illustrate what we find. This theory of convergence was proposed by a Hungarian economist called Jan Tinbergen. He was the first recipient of economic prize of economics in the world. And here in this theory of convergence, he saw this was a theory proposed in the peak of the Cold War between Soviet Union and the US. Now the BRI was also colored a lot, and also the trade war was colored a lot as the Cold War between China and the US. So here he found that this convergence theory, on the one hand, each system is learning from experience and trying to overcome some of its own weaknesses. On the other hand, the two different systems begin to influence each other more and more. Here, what inspired me to use this theory of convergence, talk about global initiatives, is because when we talk about those competition between China and the US, China and the West, there are a lot of discussion about competition, about decoupling. It seems that the world is divergent. There will be more differences than we can see, but we need to see that actually behind this decoupling, although this acclaimed decoupling, actually there are many similar things happening. So the one thing is this convergence. Here we also want to emphasize that Mr. Tinbergen pointed out that when the systems begin to influence each other more and more, those kind of influence is not only happen by persuasion. It does not mean that US told China that you should not do something, and then China will listen, oh, we will not do that thing. Actually, those kind of influence will happen between each other through competition, it means that when China did something and the US say, oh, we want to compete with China, it seems that thing is working. It seems it's not that bad. It is creating something good. So those things may be the global connectivity, maybe the infrastructure development, or maybe even CPEC. Here in the next part, I will briefly introduce the BRI, B3W, and the Global Gateway proposed by the EU to talk about their similarities or the same trend that I have found. But I know that our Pakistan friends has been very, very similar of a BRI, so I will be very brief in this part of the global cooperation areas, principles, and prospects. So I think all these are very well-known contents in the policy community in Pakistan, because all those contents has also been the principles and prospects of CPEC. As we all know that CPEC is the flagship project and the most representative project of BRI. And next, I would like to share some of the latest updates of BRI that is from my personal observation. I think maybe our friends in Pakistan has known that recently in last month, November 19, 2021, China domestically hold its third high-level symposium on the BRI. This is not a BRI summit with international leaders, with international players. This is a domestic working meeting of BRI with the highest leadership from President Xi Jinping and all the provincial governors, all the ministers, and all the related organizations in China involved in BRI. So this is a very important meeting. Those contents I list here are the main highlights from this third high-level symposium on the BRI in November, after BRI was proposed 8 years. So if we look at those keywords, we see it emphasizes about high-quality development of BRI throughout the joint efforts. It also said that it aimed for high standard, sustainable, and people-centered progress. I think when we talk about all these latest updates, we can also see them in the CPEC, either in the first phase or in the upcoming second phase. So it also emphasized that there should be stronger political mutual trust, more cooperative mechanism, and a better connectivity network linking land, sea, air, and cyberspace. And China also will urge efforts to increase trade with neighboring countries, expand imports of high quality products, promote international industrial capacity cooperation, and enhance financial connectivity and cultural exchanges. And also what we can see from this latest high leadership meeting on BRI, it also highlights about the cooperation in health, in green development, in digital industry, and in innovation. So we can see that BRI is progressing with the dynamic of the world, with the pandemic, with the climate change, and with the digitalization of the whole world. And also here in this symposium, President Xi Jinping also emphasized that projects to improve people's livelihood could be an effective means to increase people's sense of fulfillment in countries along the Belt and Road. I think this will also be one key question or plan that for the CPEC, that how do we work to improve Pakistan people's livelihood, that to increase Pakistan normal people's sense of fulfillment in the CPEC. And the last is that COVID-19 responses should be coordinated with the efforts to promote the BRI. We know that China and Pakistan has also been working on many fronts and aspects of vaccines, of sharing experiences to fight the COVID-19. Here, this is also about this meeting. So here we know that I said that this high-level symposium is the third one. So when BRI was proposed after 3 years, there is one after 5 years, there is another this meeting, and now it's after 8 years. This is the third meeting. I think these three contents here are very important. Besides those general illustration, those three contents target about specific issues. It also relates to CPEC and many other BRI projects or corridors. First is that BRI will develop an all-weather early warning and risk assessment platform for China's overseas projects and coordinating mechanisms for the protection of the country's interests abroad, global counterterrorism efforts, and security control. And many of the panelists have mentioned about the security issues of CPEC. I will not say more. And the second is that China will educate and guide its citizens and enterprises abroad to abide by local laws and customs and set up efforts to combat cross-border graft, warning that enterprises should regulate their business activities and will not be allowed to damage the country's prestige. I think Mr. Dawood's speech mentioned that there should be more cross-cultural learning between China and the US. I think this is the cross-cultural learning and self-discipline from China's side. The third is that China also, President Xi Jinping noting that all the related governments should work related to the BRI should be high on their agenda. And also those governments and the bodies who involved in the BRI work should set up management of overseas projects and risk control. So this concludes my part of the BRI introduction. So I introduced about BRI general principles, content, and also its latest update. Then I will introduce very briefly about B3W. So my friends, you may also know or hear about them. I here want to go through with you the contents of B3W and Global Gateway, just to show you that one of the motivation is that when I started work as a journalist from 2012, from 2013 to report on BRI, I hear a lot of concerns and worries from both China, both inside of China and outside of China. I remember very clearly that some US think tank and experts, when they talk about BRI and CPEC in the early 2015, they will say, we know China. Let China try and let China fail. So at that time, their motivation, that mindset, are very different today. If China is doing something like BRI so wrong, and why US and Europe would also like to do this their own global connectivity initiative. And here we can see from President Joe Biden's speech that he did not hide that their intention that the B3W is to counter China's BRI is also to kind of compete with the BRI. So here he said that B3W is an alternative democratic infrastructure initiative to BRI, and China has BRI, and we think there is a much more equitable way to provide for the needs of the countries around the world. Here, he also mentioned this value-driven, high-standard, transparent infrastructure partnership to combat the COVID-19, etc. And here, let's look at some of the components of the B3W. In its scope, it is global. B3W also want to cover from Latin America and Caribbean to Africa to Indo-Pacific. And these are the 4 areas of their focus, like climate change, health and security, digital technology, gender equity and equality. Those are their 6 guiding principles. So from these principles, you can see maybe beyond this value-driven, I think when US says value-driven, it mainly means democratic, or other things, but China actually BRI I also think is value-driven, but the value is a shared prosperity, is a different level of values. And they also emphasize good governance, strong standards, climate-friendly, strong strategic partnership, and also mobilize private capital through development finance, and also the impact of multilateral public finance. If we see all those contents, we can see that all those things that they are doing, they said they will do. Actually, China and Pakistan, China and other BRI partners has already been doing for over many years. And third, let us see this global gateway that was proposed by the EU very near, that is in last month. So this global gateway is an EU plan for major investment in infrastructure development also around the world. it also aims to forge the links and not dependencies. Also, China wants to BRI is also to forge links, not to create dependencies on either side. There is a high standard, good governance, transparency, to work with different partners, host countries, financial institutions, and private sector, and the local community, all these things. Let's also look at the global gateway, their approach. So I will not read all of them. You may see it from here. So you can see it's very similar. And here, like for the global gateway, they also emphasize that we will not only focus on physical infrastructure, but also some soft infrastructure, like enabling environment to make sure projects deliver. So after an overview, so then we look at all these three global initiatives of BRI, B3W, and Global Gateway. So we can use the convergence analysis to look at them. The first, I think all three global connectivity initiatives, in terms of their goal or aim, they all have geopolitical and geoeconomic goals. We should not hide that. And also, they have their domestic needs and also they have outward needs. In terms of the scale, every country said that, oh, the initiative will go big. We will put trillions of dollars or billions of dollars in the plan. But we may also wonder that the money in those initiatives are on the table or money only in the talk. So if we look at the players, it will be public, private, NGO, and many diverse players. So for the values and principles, we can see it's very similar. And for the components, we can see it's hardware and also the software.
Madam, sorry to interrupt, but can you finish in the next 2 minutes because we have to go for the next panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I will finish very soon. Yeah. So this is that we know two critical factors with BRI has impacted us. The one is US-China trade war. The other is COVID-19 pandemic. We know that. And this is that I think for the BRI in the past 8 years, there are some outputs like through outcomes that beyond expectation has very good feedbacks. For example, like the CIIE, Pakistan was also a very active partner of the CIIE, and now Pakistan's like peanuts, mangoes, fruits, and many other products are accessible to normal Chinese people, normal Chinese consumers. So this is my final part of the sharing. I think these are the 4 takeaways for the CPEC from looking at the global initiatives. First, that CPEC will continue to be a pioneer leader in global and regional connectivity initiatives in terms of vision, value, practice, and early harvest. Of course, there will be also some early perceived challenges, but we will be in an advantage position to solve them. And second is that CPEC will also seek for sustainability in economic, social, financial, and environmental development. And the third is that I think CPEC will also target both hard connectivity and soft connectivity. And the fourth, CPEC will also involve diverse stakeholders, partners, and players, both public and private, and also across local, regional, and international. Yeah, thank you. This is all my presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Lin. A very useful comparison of the 3 initiatives. I'm sorry that we will have no time for questions and answers, but I wish to thank all these speakers, Professor Tang, Madam Lin, and my friend, Mr. Hassan Dawood, for their valuable input. I think we'll postpone the question and answers because of shortage of time, because we are waiting for the next panel, and I think questions can be asked in the next panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Masood Khalid, and thank you very much, Hassan Dawood Bhatt Saab, for coming here and sharing your thoughts. Please take this small token of appreciation with you. Now we close this session and move to the next session. I invite Ambassador Namana Hashmi, who will be moderating panel 2 on the stage. She is Pakistan's former ambassador to China, And I also invite Dr. Khurram Iqbal. I also invite Vice Admiral Iftikhar Ahmed Rao to come on the stage. Hello, good afternoon to Professor Zhang Jigan, if he has joined us. I won't take more time. I'll hand over the podium to Ambassador Nahman.
Ambassador Nadeem Riaz, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and ni hao to all my Chinese friends in Beijing and other parts of China. Actually, because we have overshot the time limit for the first session, so my suggestion is that I skip the introduction and we can maybe save more time for the question answer, because everything essential that needed to be said about CPEC has already been said. So we now move to the second part of the program today, which will focus on the geostrategic and security challenges that CPEC is facing, and how do we maneuver out of those challenges that are present, and to take advantage of the immense opportunities that are there, because failing to do so is not an option, neither for us nor for the region. So with these words, I would actually go straight away and invite my first panelist. And our first panelist is Dr. Khurram Iqbal, who is the head of Department of IR at the National Defense University. And he actually needs no introduction, because he is already an acknowledged writer who's done 3 books on terrorism and how to deal with it. And he is also sort of associated with several think tanks. So I would now invite him to come and share his thoughts about the challenges that CPEC is facing, particularly the security challenges that it faced, and present his thoughts about the way out of those challenges. Dr.
I would be religiously following the 10-minute slot. All right, I will try my best. A very good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the kind introduction. Grateful to Institute for Regional Studies for inviting me to share my thoughts on global, regional, and internal security threats to China-Pakistan economic corridor. To understand these security threats to CPEC, we must first situate CPEC into global geopolitical scenario. And when we examine CPEC vis-a-vis the global geopolitical scenario, we realize that it's no longer a matter of debate that United States of America, the uncontested hegemon after the Cold War, has come to see BRI and its corridors as an instrument for China to challenge the unipolar world order that the world experienced after the end of Cold War. Therefore, we have seen American policymakers trying to pursue their allies and dissuade them from being a part of Belt and Road Initiative. In certain contexts, it is being done through persuasion. As we have seen, there are 3 global alternatives to BRI from America and its Western European allies. And in certain contexts, it's being done by the power of coercion. And if you want to understand how coercive power is being used to dissuade the countries from being a part of BRI, One just needs to look at the shuttle diplomacy of Secretary Pompeo during the last few months of President Trump's presidency. Secretary Pompeo made frequent visits to Central Asian states, South Asia, with a view to dissuade them from being a part of Belt and Road Initiative, terming the project as perhaps as a debt trap, as an instrument of Chinese neo-imperialism. And this is the American response. And if you talk about the Western European allies of the United States of America, which were the most important beneficiaries of a unipolar world order after the Cold War, the Western European allies of America, they are towing cautiously the American dictum on BRI. They wish to engage economically with China, but on key strategic issues, they have to align with the United States of America. That's why you would see a number of bilateral economic agreements between China and Germany, China and France, UK. But on multilateral forums, the European powers, especially the Western European powers, they are trying to demonize China on issues such as South China Sea, human rights violations, political suppression in Hong Kong, etc. That was the global response. Regionally speaking, United States of America has been fortunate enough to find a henchman in form of India, which is willing to do the American bid, no matter whatever is the cost. Therefore, India is quite vocally opposed to Belt and Road Initiative, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and despite overtures by China and Pakistan to share the dividends of BRI, India is reluctant to join BRI or be a part of any of the corridors associated with BRI. The pretext that is being used by India is that CPEC passes through the disputed region. Well, if you look at international law, no provision in international law bars mega development in the disputed regions. And if you talk about India, recently we have seen how India revoked some of the key provisions in Indian constitution with a pretext to develop the Indian administered Kashmir. So Indian objection on CPEC do not hold any legal weight in the context of international law. So how India is responding? India has resorted to two sort of responses, declared and undeclared responses to BRI and CPEC. Declared responses include number of alternatives to lure the regional countries, which, as one of my Chinese panelists say, they are very heavy on rhetoric, but very shallow in substance. India is offering alternatives by talking money, but failing to bring that money on the table. For instance, we talk about Asia-Africa Growth Corridor. India has also proposed Project Monsoon. India has also proposed Project Spices, the Project Spice Route. India has also proposed to counter One Belt, One Road as one culture, one road to lure in the South Asian countries. But we have hardly seen any progress on these proposals by India and its Western allies. Mainly because if you look at the strategic culture of India, Indians are not known as generous spenders. So they would like to make lofty claims to counter the Chinese economic expansion in South Asia, but when it comes to practically implement, you would hardly see any progress. So resultantly, India has moved to low-cost, high-impact responses. And that low-cost, high-impact response includes sponsoring terrorist organizations in Pakistan. If you look at the history of terrorism in Pakistan since 2001, there was certainly a strong ideological side to this terrorism. You have seen terrorist organizations misinterpreting Islam to carry out their nefarious agenda. We have seen terrorist organizations in Balochistan targeting the state and its organs with a nationalist agenda. But I would say with the inception of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the age of ideological terrorism is gone, and the age of proxyism has started in South Asia. This is not something new. We have seen during the Cold War how different states basically achieved their geostrategic goals through sponsoring proxies in each other's adversaries' areas. To substantiate what I've seen, of course, I need not to mention Kulbhushan Yadav, just one example. Then some of the most prominent terrorist attacks on the Chinese interests in Pakistan, they have been traced back in Afghanistan, previously led by Ashraf Ghani administration. The terrorist attack on Chinese consulate in Karachi, the mastermind, he was operating from his hideout in Kandahar, being sheltered by the Indian intelligence agencies there. And of course, following only after a few weeks after the attacks on the Chinese consulate in Karachi, Aslam Achu, the commander of that Baloch organization, was cleanly and neatly eliminated in his hideout in Kandahar. So there are numerous examples. We have recently seen the attack in Dasu, and we have to admit that the highest number of attacks on Chinese interests and Chinese assets in BRI countries, they're occurring in Pakistan, unfortunately. So CPEC has transformed the character of terrorism in this part of the world. And how Pakistan can respond to that? First of all, diplomatically, Pakistan would look towards China to put its diplomatic weight behind Pakistan to at least highlight Indian role in sponsoring terrorism in the country. Secondly, the developments in Afghanistan with Taliban takeover in Kabul, I think the space that terrorist organizations, including TTP, BLA, and other ethno-nationalist organizations, that is pretty much squeezed. And it'll be difficult for terrorist organizations and their operators to now operate from Afghanistan as they did during the last 2 decades. So that's really a positive development for Pakistan, but that should not lead us to counter-terrorism triumphalism. We need to build on this momentum by engaging Afghan Taliban to deny safe sanctuaries to any terrorist of any hue and color, whether they are the ethno-nationalist organizations, whether that is ETIM or Daesh for that purpose. So to conclude, since I was only given 7 minutes, I would say that the internal threats that CPEC faces, they are intrinsically linked to regional and global geopolitics. And we cannot look at internal threats of terrorism to CPEC, isolating it from regional and global developments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation on the threat perspective, particularly in context to South Asia. And I'm terribly sorry I only gave you 7 minutes, because I think it'll be very interesting to have a very active question and answer session. And because the first session went so long that I am constrained to take 3 minutes away from your presentation. I would now like to request Vice Admiral Iftikhar Ahmed Rao Saab to come and make a presentation on the blue economy. And let me, although he needs no introduction, but let me still say that Iftikhar Saab was the former vice chairman of the vice chief of the Navy, and he has also served with distinction as the naval attaché in China, where he was also awarded an honor for friendship, for enhancing Pakistan-China friendship. He has also been an advisor to the navies of UAE and Dubai. He is a very distinguished faculty member at the National Defense University, and we often see him at think tanks and many times on television and radio, also talking about blue economy and also about Pakistan-China friendship and about CPEC. So with these words, it's over to you, and 7 minutes, Admiral Saab.
7 minutes or 17 minutes? Okay.
7.
Can you, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about blue economy and CPEC. Next slide, please. CPEC is the flagship project of BRI, as many speakers have said before also. And Gwadar Port is the flagship project of CPEC. There's no doubt about that. Next, please. Gwadar Port and the sea part, Samandar part of CPEC are actually the heart and soul of the whole concept of CPEC. Minus the sea part, the Samandar part, the CPEC is basically extension of KKH and some infrastructure projects only. So it is the C part which is the most important, the blue part, and that's what I will be talking about. Next, please. Blue opportunities for Pakistan, especially in the light of the CPEC, maritime transportation, that is the biggest thing. Gwadar comes in, inland waterways, the water transportation, shipping industry, shipbuilding, fisheries, our exploitation of our exclusive economic zone, and so on. Next, please. Importance of our seas. Ladies and gentlemen, world's most important sea lines of communication pass through our coast. Next, please. I can't. Please operate, kare, please. Okay. So, concentrate here. So 60% of the world oil is in the Gulf area, and that all oil will flow just off our coast. Even now, 21 million barrels of oil per day passes through Hormuz and passes right off our coast of Gwadar. So the blue or the maritime economic activity that is already there in our region and that will be created in future is not hard to imagine. But to benefit from those this opportunity, we need to have the requisite assets and infrastructure, etc. And above all, the awareness, the maritime awareness, which is totally lacking. Okay, next, please. This 21 million of barrels of oil from the Gulf, where does it go? Most of it, 16 million per day, goes through Malacca Strait to the Far East countries, especially China. Next. Not only oil, the rest of the trade, next please. 64% of the world trade, cargo trade, goes to Asia. So Asia is the linchpin, as Hassan Dawood also mentioned. Next, please. So exponential, China and exponential growth and huge volumes, more than $4 trillion US trade. And next. And that is why this China-Pakistan economic corridor, apart from the energy projects and others, is most important because of this sea part of it. That is, this is the corridor which will export or which will allow the Chinese trade to go through to the rest of the world through this Gwadar. Next, please. This is the normal route from Gwadar going to the, or from Gulf going to the Far East, or let's say China. It passes through, next please, it passes through Malacca Strait. As the previous Chinese President Hu Jintao said, this is the Malacca dilemma. This is a restricted channel, obviously, and as per the Chinese reports, they're controlled by the countries or the states which are not very friendly to China and more, or let's say more friendly towards the US, and they are worried about it, and that is why I call it. To bypass this channel or have the alternates, they already have a pipeline project which is already functional through Myanmar. So they'll obviously they will need other aspects also. So this comes to one day they want to develop the northwest part, especially the Kashgar area. Then this comes next. So going to Kashgar from the normal route, next please, Dubai. It takes a long route, which is 14,000 kilometers only the seaward. Then even the long, land route is more than 4,500 kilometers from, let's say, Shanghai to Kashgar. But when it comes to CPEC, next, so it is less than 2,400 kilometers. So it makes a lot of sense. And This next is a brief documentary. Okay, आवाज बढ़ाने दो.
Such as Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq. Gwadar, a bright pearl on the southern coast of Pakistan, is becoming the focus of global attention. Gwadar is located along the east gate of the Persian Gulf, which secures a strategic location for international oil transportation. Gwadar occupies an important spot on the energy pipeline from West Asia to East Asia. This is Gwadar. 20 years ago, Shenzhen was nothing more than a fishing village. Now, it's become a window to the world. East of Pakistan, there are 3 large oil importers: China, India, and Japan. The Malacca Strait, controlled by the US, is a vital shipping channel in East Asia. As the second largest oil importer, China relies heavily on the Malacca Strait. This brings uncertainties and risks to economic and oil securities for China. This corridor can provide China with an improved energy safeguard and is also an important part in Pakistan's national energy strategy. The unique location of Gwadar is advantageous for building large and modern oil refining and processing bases. Therefore, we have prepared the first stage investment plan for Gwadar International SEZ. It is estimated that within 5 years, the first investment will be $1.5 billion US. Within 10 years, the total investment will reach $40 billion US. Within 20 years, driven by the petrochemical industries, will have an income of over $200 billion US.
So this was 2006. Had we progressed accordingly, so where would have been next? Next, please. So China's traffic actually, or the trade has increased so much that it uses the normal sea route, as it is shown. Just to give you a perspective, from Chongqing to Duisburg, there is regular trade through the sea. And because this trade is so much, and this is the relatively longer route, so they use the land route also. And that land route is Chongqing to Duisburg. It is 12,000 kilometers cut short, but it is obviously land route, so it is more expensive. So this rail line or the road land route, they started from 2012. And at that time, it was only 1 train per week. And now it is more than 30 per week. So we can see that this both the belt, next please. The belt is already operational on the land route, and the road is also operational, the sea route. Next, so the Belt and Road Initiative is already functional. They are both land route and the sea route. So the missing is CPEC. As the CPEC will become get operationalized, it will be the best of both worlds, belt and the road, and a linkage between this, which will cut short the time and cut short the distance also, and will be most economic way. And so this is a great opportunity for China and Pakistan both. Next. Now CPEC and Suez linkage. Now Suez cut short this distance and made it shorter. But now with CPEC, next please. CPEC will cut short this distance and go direct to the Northwest China and also the Central Asian republics. So it is as important as the Suez Canal, and it will be complementary to Suez Canal also in the overall trade in the Indian Ocean region. Next. Now this is the region, this is the trade, international trade that goes to the Far East, and this significant portion of this trade will start going through this, and this will be the real disruption. Next. Various opportunities for Pakistan. Shipping, we have only one state-owned shipping company, PNSC. And it carries only about 5 to 10% of our domestic cargo only, as per the Maritime Affairs Ministry's website themselves. And we pay more than 4 to 5 billion US in freight, because we don't have our own ships, so many ships to take charge of, or to carry our own cargo. Next. So surely we can do much better. Shipping industry, now I'll give you a brief more on this, because I happen to be in the Karachi shipyard also. So the shipbuilding industry, how important it is not very difficult to realize, but the awareness is not there. Next, please. From 1950 to 2004, the world seaborne trade grew 13 times. Next, Department. And the world GDP grew 13 times. Sorry, world seaborne trade grows 3 times and GDP grew 8 times. So as the GDP grows, the world seaborne trade grows. In fact, even more than that, almost 1.5 times the GDP growth of the world. So more the seaborne trade, more the requirement of ships, ship repair, and hence the shipbuilding industry. Next, please. The shipbuilding is an economic catalyst. Shipbuilding is labor-intensive industry and involves wide range of ancillary industry. Very attractive for developing nations. These are not my conclusions. This is the European Union's study which says so. Next. The shipbuilding industry, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the Second World War or before the Second World War, shipbuilding industry was mainly in Europe and that too in UK only. When during the Second World War, Japanese infrastructure was destroyed, they wanted to rebuild it, so they made shipbuilding as the hub industry, because with this industry developing, the steel industry and all industry related to steel, that is cars, manufacturing, and everything else, everything that we need in the normal life is used on the ships also. So all the rest of the economy starts increasing. So Japan used this, decided this, and all we know is within about 10 years after the Second World War, Japan became #1 shipbuilder of the world. And as they became #1 shipbuilder of the world, their economy grew tremendously, as we all know. Then later, in late 60s, early 70s, when South Korea started to have their economic development, we said they took away our economic plan. What they did was, they said, do not reinvent the wheel, follow the Japanese model. They did. And by early 90s, Korea became #1 shipbuilder of the world and Japan became second. Then came China during the Chu-Rongji's prime ministership. After a lot of studies, they also said that follow the Japanese and Korean model rather than reinventing. In 2001, they were exporting 1 million deadweight tonnage shipping only. By 2005, they were exporting 5 million. And then they declared that by 2013, they will become #1 shipbuilders of the world, which they achieved 2 years earlier in 2011. And we all know how Chinese economy did all this period. So this is unknown to most of us, but this is how it is. Now Philippines and Vietnam are benefiting from the same process. Next. Now this is the graphic from Clarkson research report. As I just told you, before the Second World War, it was Britain, and then came Japan after the Second World War, then Korea, and now Japan. Now these three giants of the shipbuilding, China, Korea, and Japan. Next slide, please. They have the world's almost entire shipbuilding done. And now Philippines is coming up. Next. And what is the strength of Philippines? JICA's report says Philippines now ranks as 4th world largest shipbuilder. Next. And its strengths include, as per the JICA, deep seashore, abundance of labor force, and legalized fiscal incentives. Ladies and gentlemen, the first two, deep seashore and abundance of labor force, is already given to us by Allah Almighty. The third, legalized fiscal incentives, is in our own hands. And when we come to convert this to Pakistan, next please. So we have used it. So next. And then on top of this is our location. Next. This is the world oil route. These big tankers, super tankers, oil tankers, etc. They need, all the ships need regular repair and maintenance. They can only be repaired and maintained when they are empty, not while they are full. So when they go to the Gulf to take oil and pass in front of Gwadar and our coast, they are all empty. So if we have the requisite asset and infrastructure over there, then we can attract most of the super tankers and tankers to our port in Gwadar or whatever facilities we want to develop. Next. So the plan was given to the government and the vision was given to the government on 27th August, to be specific, 27th August 2007, which was approved to have two world-class shipyards, one at Gwadar and one at Kasam, and investment from foreign countries. There are a lot of interest from the foreign countries, Koreans, Japanese, etc. Because it is labor-intensive. Philippines, etc. What they are doing is because it is labor-intensive since Japan and Korea labor has gone very high. Chinese labor is also going high. So they want to have now shipyards in places where they can have their own technology, their own management, but labor cheaper than China, which is the biggest competitor. So that is where Philippines has come up. That is where the Vietnam has come up, and that is where we can have a lot of things. As it is, we have a lot of plans, we have a lot of approvals. So this was approved on 27th August 2007, and we are talking of coming to 2020. 22. Now, I think then about the shipbuilding, because of my passion. Now, shipbreaking, again, it was doing a little bit, but in this shipbuilding also, we are lagging behind. Now, you can see we are the third, and with the new country, but there is a scope we can still improve. Next, inland waterways. Waterborne transportation is very cheap. It is almost 1/10 the shipborne cargo freight cost, almost 1/10 of the pipeline, and pipeline is cheaper than rail, and rail is cheaper than road. That is the sequence of the cost of the transportation. And inland waterways, just to give a comparison of various countries, this is China, sorry for this is Brazil, USA, Europe, and Pakistan. So we have done nothing about it. Next, and World Bank report of this year, in fact, this month, they have said Pakistan's elaborate river and canal systems hold immense untapped potential. Major economic and social economic gains can be derived from this. And this is the World Bank report if we start implementing it better. Next. Fisheries. Next. Fish is the world's most traded food commodity. Next. When we see the fishing industry in the all, so the first, I said 7 minutes or 17 minutes or 7, so keep adding that. Next is, so the most top fishing areas of the world were next, these four. Our area next was not the most fishing area, but when it comes to harvesting, next, our neighbor is there, we are not there. Next. And not only that, the FAO report says catches have changed with a 4% decrease in Pakistan and 8% increase for India. Next, again, fisheries, our share in GDP is only 0.4% of, again, we can do much better than this. Next. So again, World Bank report only 2 years back, revitalizing Pakistan's fisheries. If we can read it properly and implement it, we can do a lot. Next. And our exclusive economic zone of 290,000 square kilometers, the 5th province of Pakistan, the second largest province of Pakistan, and the richest province of Pakistan. We have to understand what is there and then take advantage of it. Next. Marine and coastal tourism, because our Prime Minister keeps talking about the tourism a lot, but mostly when he talks of tourism, he talks of the northern areas. So marine and coastal tourism, ladies and gentlemen, this business involves volumes of tourism equals, even surpasses that of oil exports, food products, and or automobiles. Marine and coastal tourism within the tourism is one of the fastest growing areas within the world's largest industry. Next. So our coast, I'll just give you a few glimpses before going. Okay, this is our coast, the Golden Coast. Next. Next, the historical part also. Next, 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 next. Okay, next. So, ladies and gentlemen, our geoeconomic location is ideal and potential of our blue economy is tremendous. Giving maritime sector its due importance and safeguarding our maritime interests would be key to our economic development and influence in the region. So for all this, basically, first we need to have more awareness and even in these sessions, the blue economy, 70% of the planet is water, and it cannot be covered in 7 minutes. It has to be given full sessions to do justice to it. And जो कहते हैं दरिया को कूजे में बंद कर रही है तो आप 70% समंदर को कूजे में बंद करा रहे हैं, बड़ा मुश्किल काम। Next please, thank you.
Thank you very much, Edmund Saab, for a very, very comprehensive presentation. And you're right, it requires more time, particularly because people generally don't think of the blue economy where CPEC is concerned, although that is one of the most essential parts of the connectivity and trade that we had there. So thank you very much. I believe our next speaker is joining us from China, Professor Zhang. Professor Zhang is associated with the Fudan University, but he knows Pakistan very well because he has served in Pakistan as a second secretary. He has also a very deep understanding of the Western world, as he has frequently interacted and worked on America and UK and Western Europe. Today, we are very happy to have our old friend of Pakistan join us, and he will be talking about the potential of regional connectivity that BRI and particularly CPEC offers. So it's over to you, Professor.
Okay. Thank you for Chairman, for Ambassador Hashmi. Thank you so much. Thank you for IRS to invite me to give a presentation to share my idea, my perspective on the CPEC potential for regional connectivity. And it's my great pleasure to be here to meet our old friend like Ambassador Khalid, Mr. Hashmi, and Mr. Hassan Dawood. And also, it's my great pleasure to know our new friends. Thank you. So my topic here, I think we also have a very short time, limited time. So my topic, we mainly focus on 3 aspects for this topic. The first, when we talk about the CPEC potential for regional connectivity, so we need to understand the background very well. So what was the current situation when we talk about this? Secondly, I will talk about the constraint factors on their potential of CPEC for regional connectivity. And then last point for me, last part for my presentation will be on the how to exploit the potentials for CPEC potential for regional connectivity. So firstly, when we talk about the potential of CPEC for the regional connectivity, so we need to put it on the 3 backgrounds. The first, CPEC itself. So when we talk about CPEC, we know that it was introduced by 2 governments, China and Pakistan, on 2013. So after the 8 years, especially after the first phase, I think that the CPEC has laid a solid foundation for regional connectivity already. So this is under 2 aspects. One is materially. When we talk about the CPEC, we know that it has changed Pakistan and greatly. And this is just one side. Another side is that we know that it has changed the mind of the leaders of local countries, especially our Pakistan leaders, very much. You know, among our friends from Pakistan, the leaders, the political leaders, our scholars here, and also the media, they almost talk about their CPEC, and they always relating it to their regional connectivity. And even when your prime minister to go to other countries, for example, to Sri Lanka, to Middle East, he talk about CPEC and how to CPEC for the connectivity with each other and its potential and so on. So this is the first background. The second background, I think, is that we talk about it today. That the region is witnessed great exchange, great change now. So I think that the two changes is very important. The first change is that I think that the South Asia itself is departed to South Asia. One South Asia, I think, is that is mainly from the geopolitical, security perspective. That mainly, I think, leading by the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy like that. And from that side, I think that the United States is to promote its relationship with India and some other local countries to be aimed at its geostrategic purpose. But on the other side, and we know that when China now, we are launching the BRI initiative and the CPEC project that is mainly focused on the regional connectivity. And the connectivity is the new public goods for this area. I think that is a joint venture for China and the local countries. And this South Asia, and I think it's very different for the old or traditional South Asia. And this is the second background. And also the third background, I think, is that the needs for the development of regional countries is in urgent necessary. I think because in the last 20 years, because of the terrorism, the anti-terrorism war launched by the United States, I think the Afghanistan, fourth country, the second most influential country, Pakistan. I think this is the second 20 years. I think let these countries lose the great opportunities to develop themselves. At the same time, now, we know that in Asia, the South Asia, East Asia, Southeast Asia, they have captured their opportunities to develop itself in the past 20 years. But this is not the truth, the factor for Pakistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and even Central Asia. I think that's me. But I think that 20 years later, the war is over. The war is over. But the international environment is not so nice like before because of this era. I think that the major powers, especially from the Western countries, they are more and more looking inwards, and they has lose interest to help to develop this area. But I think only China is still focused on their reaching our neighbors to facilitate the connectivities for the whole region. So this is the third background. So my second point mainly focus on the main constraint factors for the potential of the CPEC for regional connectivity. The first, I think, the first constraint factor, I think, is that the recurrence of geopolitics. That means that in this area, we think that the major power, the model is changing. The relations between the major powers in this area is changing. From major power coordination to competition. For example, in Afghanistan, when the United States is there to be anti-terrorism, I think China can enjoy the security and the stability. So to some extent, the stability is there to invest there to develop its economic interest there. And also, this is the truth for our cooperation with Pakistan, because the United States focuses mainly on their anti-terrorism issue. But now United States is focused on their great power competition, and that means that is the environment has changed very much, and this will bring very important impacts on us. Like the Professor Iqbal mentioned just now, I totally agree with you that you mentioned that when they compete with us, just use their economic issue to economic truth. I think that we don't worry about it, really worry about that. But they can't do that. They are now focused on the security tool. They use the low cost to get the high impact. And this is not only for India. And also this perhaps is also for United States. And especially when these two major powers, they conspire together. And this is whether will be much worse. And this is the first constraint factors. The second constraint factors, I think, is that also in the concept note for our conference have mentioned, that is the negative propaganda for CPEC and for BRI. And this is very, very serious, especially in the past 2 or 3 years. You know, well, when the CPEC is quick, is fast development, we don't hear so much negative propaganda for that. But after 2018, especially after the COVID-19 issue, that lots of negative propaganda come, especially about internationally and even domestically in Pakistan. And when this happened, it will shape the public opinion very much, and there is more and more negative perspective on CPEC, even in Pakistan. And then when this kind of opinions come to China, and then even some Chinese scholars and some people here will have some negative opinion on CPEC. So this is when I just came back here to 3 months earlier. But in the past 3 months, when I attended some conference here to exchange our ideas with our colleagues here and our scholars here, I'm very curious, surprised by their opinion. I think this kind of opinion, negative opinion on CPEC, perhaps partly also is from the negative propaganda for Western countries. This is the second, we must be fair. The third, I think that is the constraint, the factors, I think is that there are conflicts and contradiction between the local regional countries, even inside this area. I think our Pakistan friends is more know this much better than me. I don't want to explain it in detail. So my third part of my presentation is focus on how to exploit the potential for CPEC for the regional connectivity. I just want to share have 5 recommends. First, I think that we must clearly understanding the fundamental reality of this region. So this region is very different from other area. It's not so peaceful, not so stable. And even because of the some hegemony countries and even some local regional countries, they have doing something there too. I think that this area, we have to face lots of security challenges. So for this truth, so I would think that when we develop the connectivity here in this area, I think that we should do it in 2 ways. The first way, perhaps we should develop the connectivities, perhaps in the comparable, peaceful, comparable, stable area first. And the second, perhaps we need to, because we know for CPEC in the first phrase, we think that when we talk about the connectivity, we have 5 kinds of connectivity. But the hard connectivity, we do it first in the first phrase, and soft connectivity follow up after the hard connectivity. So for now, for the whole region, I think that we should do this at the same time. This is first recommendation. The second, I think that for the regional connectivity, because it is a public good, I think that the CPEC must be more open. So we must invite to the international third partner much more we must do that much more optimistically. So that's the second recommendation. The third, I think we must do it step by step. when we talk about the regional connectivity, we must do it domestically in each countries. So we will, as we look back to Pakistan. So when we talk about the Pakistan connectivity, I think this the connectivity in Pakistan has changed greatly because of CPEC in the past several years. So then for the domestic connectivity, then the inter-region connectivity, and after that is the inter-region connectivity, and after that is inter-region connectivity. So one must do it step by step. There's first, I think that we think that for the connectivity here, the regional countries must play the major role for the regional connectivity. Especially Pakistan must play a leading role for that. So this is my first recommendation. For the fifth, I think that it's also very important. We must be very highly aware of the political propaganda from the against the CPEC. So for this, I just for two suggestions. One suggestion is that the think tanks from both sides, even from traditional sides, from Afghanistan and other countries. So these think tanks must do joint research on their on this issue together, and how to be against this kind of political propaganda. And secondly, perhaps we, as my colleagues in Chinese embassy here now is doing now, that we should have established the information and the media corridor together. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for a very candid presentation and for very practical suggestions that you have put forward for regional connectivity. Thank you very much. Now, unfortunately, our next two panelists are not able to join us due to some unavoidable circumstances, but it's good in a way because that will give us a little bit more time to have a more interactive session with question and answers. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us in this panel discussion. I would request Ambassador Masood Khalid to please join me on this stage for the question answer session. Or maybe you can put one more chair there or something, or maybe they can put one more chair. Okay. Okay, you had a question, okay. But I would please request you not to make long comments, just come directly to the question so more people can ask questions. Thank you very much. Yes, please. Please identify yourself by giving your name and organization.
Dost Mohammad Badich, Research Associate at ISSI. I would like a question from Khurram Saab. As we know that the containment of China is in full swing, either it is Quad or AUKUS or South China Sea issue is there, or North Korea issue is there. Even the hasty withdrawal of the US from Afghanistan is also attributed to create troubles for China in its periphery. Say, if we just see the CPEC, the insurgency, the 5th or 6th insurgency which is going on in Balochistan, and this is the first time that insurgency has passed 16 years and still it is going on. And America is definitely going to create troubles for China too. So don't you think that America will instigate once again insurgency in Balochistan to contain China? Thank you so much.
It's a direct question, so my response will also be quite frank and direct. There are certain evidences to suggest that Indians enjoy tacit approval of United States of America while they indulge in proxy terrorism in Pakistan. For instance, after a couple of high-profile terrorist attacks in the country against Chinese interests, against CPEC, Pakistan raised this issue of Indian support for terrorist organizations, including TTP and Baloch separatists. But America officially refused to consider Pakistan's accusations or Pakistan's stance. James Mattis, who was the Secretary of State during the Trump administration, He is on record disregarding Pakistan's genuine concerns with regards to this proxyism in the country. So I think what we need to do is now, since China has been categorized as the threat to American global hegemony, we should not be expecting America and its allies to extend their diplomatic support to Pakistan's claims of Indian involvement in terrorism in Pakistan. Rather, we should be relying more on our friends. And there is one very key point that I mentioned in my presentation, and I would like to reiterate as well. Because of, we have been expecting China as well to come openly on this issue. But thus far, diplomatically, we have not received Chinese endorsement as well about Pakistan's claims of Indian-sponsored terrorism as well. This is mainly because of the Chinese strategic culture. They usually avoid this in the public sphere, but when it comes to operations and of course closed-door meetings, they are usually quite cognizant of this threat. So I think this should be put directly in the diplomatic discourse as well by Beijing.
I think that
I just want to briefly respond to that. Dr. Saab, I think you asked about the sentiment, people's sentiment about CPEC in China, right? This was your question? Yeah, I mean, you see, the relationship with Pakistan has a very positive chord in China. And, you know, the Chinese are very nuanced and in expressing their views and sentiments. Pakistan is the only country which is described as the iron brother and the only all-weather strategic cooperative partner. They have relationship with, you know, Mr. Dawood Bhatt told you, with more than 136 countries under the BRI's rubric. But this categorization has been done no less than by President Xi Jinping himself. And if you interact with a common Chinese on the street, and when he or she learns that you are from Pakistan, I think there is very warm sentiment of, you know, brotherhood and friendship. This is the general expression. So I don't think that CPEC or the friendship with Pakistan has any negativity in the minds of the Chinese people or in Chinese society. But of course, if you know, incidents like the Dasu or you know, some terrorist incidents take place whereby Chinese lives are lost, then of course it evokes, you know, some serious concern.
If I may just add to this, you know, we had lost a lot of space to the Americans and to the Indians in the last 30, 40 years in China, definitely. But the pandemic has actually changed quite a lot in China, because the response that Pakistan had to the pandemic in China, and how Pakistan actually very steadfastly stood by China, where the rest of the world was trying to alienate it and trying to, you know, stigmatize it and trying to take advantage of the fact that China may be in a difficult position and may not be able to control the pandemic. And that is why you saw the Indians trying to start the border clashes, the Americans trying to start, you know, the trade war and sanctions and this, that, and the other. And I think that really affected the people of China, and they realized that there is only one good friend that China has, and that is Pakistan, that is extremely reliable. So, and the second thing is, which is very unique about China, is that it's a rising country. And at the center of their development, at the center of their politics, is the people of China. So the people of China have full faith in the
direction in which the leadership is taking China and the Communist Party. So when the leadership gets up and says that Pakistan is the only genuine, unique friend that we have, then the people follow suit. They trust that. And in the pandemic and on a lot of other occasions, they saw that Pakistan was the only country that actually stood by China very, very steadfastly. So Ambassador Masood Khan is very right. Like here in Pakistan, we say that, there's complete consensus on certain things across the political divide in the society. Then in China, there is absolute consensus that Pakistan is a friend. So there is no negativity about friendship with Pakistan or about these large projects. Excuse me, that gentleman in the fourth row with the green jacket had raised his hand first, and after that followed by you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hamza and I am an IR graduate from Namal University. My question is from Dr. Khurram Iqbal. Sir, you've talked about the Indian proxy and state-sponsored terrorism against CPEC. Sir, my question is that apart from the diplomatic channel, what is the other way to counter the Indian state-sponsored terrorism? Because on the diplomatic front, we are not seeing any development because India have been constantly backed by US in the diplomatic arena. Thank you.
If you look at the terrorist sanctuaries during last 2 decades, the terrorist organizations which have wreaked havoc in Pakistan, they were mainly located in Afghanistan, ruled by a regime that was cultivated by the Americans there. During last 2 decades, on numerous occasions, Pakistan's raised this point, and our reservations were not with regards to, having Ashraf Ghani there, but disregard of our genuine concerns vis-a-vis the terrorist sanctuaries located in Afghanistan. With this regime change in Kabul, I think things are likely to improve, although there are certain scholars who are of the view that this takeover of Kabul by Taliban would inspire a new wave of jihadism. That's not likely to happen because extremist sentiments exist in different societies. For those extremist sentiments to evolve into terrorism, you need organizations, and organizations need enabling environment. That enabling environment comes through external support. So at the moment, what we are seeing now that these terrorist organizations, whether you talk about the so-called Islamists or the ethno-nationalists, they have lost the popular appeal to a large extent in Pakistan. So their survival was largely dependent on the sanctuaries in Afghanistan. So with Taliban ruling Afghanistan, they have given statements that they would not provide sanctuaries to Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, East Turkestan Islamic Movement, and they are trying to use their leverage to convince TTP to sit on negotiation table with Pakistan. So I think what China and Pakistan can do and must do to protect CPEC is to keep engaging Afghan Taliban. Because if we abandon Afghanistan, it's been rightly pointed out by Prime Minister Imran Khan, anarchy always favors terrorism. Anarchy in Afghanistan would create an environment in Afghanistan where it will be free for all. You will see Daesh there, you will see ETIM there, you will see Baloch and Sindhi separatists operating from that region. So it is Pakistan's national security imperative to stabilize Afghanistan. And it is equally important for China and Pakistan to work with Afghanistan on this issue.
Yes.
Azhar Khan, Special Correspondent, PTU World. My question is to Nakhmana and so because I once asked in a press talk to the current of the Chinese office, he was a deputy, and I asked him why can't we see speed on CPEC projects, and he was honest enough to say that, look, brother, how can we show you Chinese speed when we come to your country and we talk and decide something with Ministry of Planning in the federal government? Somebody starts jumping, Balochistan government. We try and please him, then somebody starts jumping in Gwadar. Then we go and please him. So this, both of you are retired ambassadors now. You're not under some legal obligation to follow the governments. So I want an answer because China is following a system where Xi Jinping decides, the Politburo, things get done. And we keep on getting these presentations after presentations for the last 6 years that they achieved something in 15 days and 20 days. Whereas in Pakistan, Sindh government is jumping and is not letting the maritime policy of the federal government, as Admiral Saab pointed out. Isn't it time that we change the system in Pakistan, or are we just going to follow this example of insanity of repeating the same mistake again and again? Your thoughts?
Well, the answer is quite simple and quite complicated at the same time. The simple side of it is Chinese, it's a 10,000-year-old civilization, and from the last 5,000 years, it's a country. So they have this very deep sense of history and this concept of long-term strategy. And they also, there because they are, they have Confucianism now, and so Taoism and Confucianism, and both these philosophies teach their people. It's a cultural thing, it's a civilizational thing, to follow the authority, to follow a form, and to avoid anarchy, and to follow the wise, which have reached a decision after collective thinking. So this thing is ingrained in the people of China. And Pakistan is a baby state, 70 years, 75 years is nothing in the life of a state. It takes time to mature. We as a nature are very impatient people. We, unfortunately, I do not want to go into the details of the reasons, but unfortunately, we have not been able to develop a long-term vision of where Pakistan wants to be, either ideologically or economically or politically. We never want to sit down and see where do we want to see ourselves in about 100 years. So what we do is we reinvent the wheels every 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whenever there is a new government. We tend to eradicate or to, erase everything that the previous government has done and restart again. So there is no consensus, actually, unfortunately, of where we want to see ourselves. The vision given by our founding fathers seems to have been lost, to the extent that we are now interpreting what our flag means by, by whims, not realizing what it actually means, and putting it similarly. I was horrified to see how our motto, unity, faith, and discipline, has also been, played around with. So in that kind of an atmosphere and mindset, I think it will still take some time for us to mature up and to get to the point where the Chinese are now, where they know that nations are built by putting, one brick over another and not pulling the bricks from the newer bricks. So it takes time. The rest maybe we can discuss at another time, because it is a societal issue, it's our history, it's our psyche, and unfortunately nothing much has been done for national integration. And there are a lot of reasons for that too. So it is a very easy question to answer, but a very, very difficult question to answer too. We need to have introspection. We need to look at ourselves to see where we have brought this beautiful country. And we need to take some very hard decision to go back towards a very serious kind of work of national integration, and to rise above the petty sectarianism and petty politics of
parochial things. So there is a lot that we still have to learn. And there is a lot that we can learn from our Chinese friends. So that, in my humble opinion, is the reason why everybody keeps jumping, because we want instant gratification. And we are a megaphone nation. And so we talk more and do less. The Chinese always believe in doing more and talking less. To end my argument here, I would like to quote my senior colleague, Ambassador Riaz Muhammad Khan. We used to ask him how he's been so successful, whatever. He was our mentor. And I remember he telling us as young officers, you need to put your head down and work and let success make the noise. We just do the opposite. Sir, would you like to add something else?
I think it was Nagmana. Problems, challenges we face at the national level. So I will not go into more. I'll briefly focus on your specific point regarding the CPEC's implementation. In my intervention this morning, I pointed out certain lacunas, certain gaps which exist in our system. Chinese speed is different, our speed is, I need not elaborate. But not that we don't have the talent, we don't have the knowledge, or we can't work hard. We have all these positive attributes in our people, in our nation. Only thing is that you have to bring them on a point of convergence. Now, as far as CPEC is concerned, I said this morning, and it is doable, to instill investors' confidence. When I was there, and she'll bear me out, I had groups and groups of Chinese SMEs and state-owned enterprises coming to embassy, coming to us and discussing the prospects for relocation of Chinese industry to Pakistan. 6 years down the line, I don't see any industry coming from China to Pakistan under CPEC. So I think this calls for introspection and some soul searching. Because if you do not do some basic things to attract the Chinese companies, they will be hesitant, because you still have, although security situation has improved considerably, but we still have issues. We have foreign spy, terrorism, and this and that to sabotage CPEC. So these are the factors, these are the facts which are given, and they are very much known to us. So what we need to do is to come up at the national level through coordination and through some energy between the provinces and the center. First thing, we talk of one window operation. One window operation is possible if a Chinese businessman or investor hears the same story in all the regions and all the provinces of Pakistan about the facilities he will be extended. If he goes to Sindh, there is a different story. Hum aapko ye de denge. Comes to BOI, they have a different narrative. Go to Balochistan. So a Chinese who has not many opportunities to go elsewhere and invest, that they are doing it, when they come here, they get confused. I mean, they get conflicting accounts, and of course, there is no hand holding yet. So, but I was delighted to hear the BOI chairman this morning. He was cognizant, he's a newcomer. He was cognizant of these difficulties and challenges. I think we should, national problems and national issues will take time. We are a young nation. Hope that we will learn from the past and go for national, integration and all that. But right now, if we focus on CPEC, there are certain steps which the government can take. I do not see much of an improvement, for example, in the amendment of SEZ Act to attract, to make these SEZs operational. That's why they are lagging behind. So in 6 years, 7 years since the CPEC started, if we have not been able to provide a legal regime, an enabling environment, there is no dispute resolution mechanism, for example. There will be disputes, there will be commercial disputes. The Chinese companies, not only get confused, they get fed up when this litigation starts in the courts and the cases linger on and on. I mean, an investor is coming if the government of Pakistan cannot provide this kind of handholding and enabling environment. So I'm afraid there will be problems. Zhao Lijian pointed out. So I think I'll conclude here.
I am sorry, but there is a lot of interest. I know I'm seeing a lot of hands going up, but we only have time, I'm told by the president, for one more question. You please, ji, aap give raising your hand. Okay, you just here.
My name is Engineer Wasim Abbasi. My question to whole panelists, especially ambassador. Okay. My name is Engineer Wasim Abbasi. My question to whole panelists that if we see the Cold War era, actually socialism and capitalism were in conflict with each other. Now Chinese have initiated BRI, and to counter Chinese BRI, Western world, especially G7 countries under this spear head by the US, they have initiated B3W plan. So now we see that again Cold War is now going to start. So it seems that Pakistan will completely move towards CPEC. As a result, we will become the part of Chinese bloc. So do you not think that we will be put ourselves in a very confused situation in future?
Please understand, the concept of connectivity that China is now implementing is not a new concept. It's a very old concept. In fact, to counter this concept, the EU had, adopted the concept Eurasian connectivity, in which all of EU countries were involved. It was done on behest of the US, but they didn't have the money to implement it because it requires money to implement these things. And similarly, B3W is also, it's something new because the Eurasian connectivity didn't work. So this has been going on for a very long time. And as far as CPEC is concerned, I think it's time that Pakistan starts to think just about itself, to help with the rest of the world. So if our interest lies in continuing this friendship, which is unparalleled in the rest of the world, and which has done nothing but benefit us, because a lot of people are not aware of what China does for us. So because of that misperception, and because we get so swayed by the Western media and the Indian media, that we start questioning us. I think he's very right. We have 70 years of friendship that has only one trajectory, and that is upwards. And it is unlike the other relationships, not a transactional relationship. That is why it has only benefited us. If you look from Gujarat to Karachi, Pakistan is studded with monuments to this friendship. And if you count them and you reflect on them, these are the monuments, or these are the essential things that have enabled Pakistan to actually develop. So
I would like to respond very briefly. Yes, you are right. There is no ideological difference as we saw in Cold War. That's what distinguishes this wave of bloc-style politics that is quite rampant these days. And of course, China is now trying to portray itself as custodian of a capitalist-led world order. So ideology is not the key marker there. Number two, it's not as simple as most of us, we think that if there's a bloc-style politics, naturally will be inclined towards China. Let's be clear about one thing. Western influence in the third world is entrenched. It's difficult to undo that. We are wearing the Western costumes, despite just presence of one foreign lady. We are speaking English, not able to talk in our language. So this influence has 100 years of history. You cannot really undo that overnight. So the best solution for a country like Pakistan is to strive for a multipolar world order where power is equally distributed among different responsible stakeholders, and our governing elite must take decisions to extract maximum opportunities for Pakistan in that multipolar world order.
Thank you very much. I think we've already overshot the allocated time limit for this seminar or conference. So I would first and foremost like to thank Ambassador Nadeem Riaz and the Institute of Regional Studies for organizing this event. I think it's one of the most comprehensive sessions that I have attended on CPEC. So congratulations on having everybody concerned under one roof. And I'm sure that with all the presentations that you have heard today, the concept of CPEC and where the region, we want to take the region with this concept and the challenges it has and the opportunities it offers is now very clear to all of you. To sum up, let me just reiterate a few points. To begin with, as a lot of our speakers have said, and as Ambassador Masood Khalid reminded everybody in his presentation, that this concept of connectivity is not new. It started in the early 60s. I would maybe say that it started when we signed the border agreement with China in 64, and in 65 the concept of making the Karakoram highway was always there. And if you think, then the Karakoram highway was actually not going to the moon. There was a purpose to this road. It was always to take it to the seafront in the south. And if you look at the BRI concept, which again is a very old concept, but the time for its implementation only came when China was developed enough, and it had consolidated itself and had economically and politically, it strengthened itself to a point that it could afford to implement this project of BRI when they had enough financial strength to do it. And if you look at the design of BRI, then Mr. Hassan Dawood is very right when he said that CPEC is the buckle of this Belt and Road initiative, because it is the only sort of corridor that is not east-west or west-east. It is the only corridor that goes north-south, and that is why it really matters so much, and that is why it becomes the linchpin, because of where it's situated and because it's the only linkage that goes north to south. And that is why Chinese implemented this corridor as on priority, and they call it the linchpin. They call it a flagship initiative, and they call Gawada the jewel of CPEC, which means that Gawada becomes actually the centerpiece of the entire BRI concept. And you also must understand that the world is changing. And this is what our panelists have also said. The world is changing. The center of political and economic center of the world has actually shifted from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And China has also risen. Now, the rise of China is it's sort of not a surprise for anybody, because for the last 250 years, people were predicting that China would rise. So that's not a surprise. So that is no case for for the kind of reaction that we see from the world. But I believe, and I'm sure Ambassador Masood Khalid will bear me out, that all this commotion is because of the strength and the speed at which China has risen. Because in the West's opinion, it would maybe have taken another 2 decades, 3 decades, but it has actually happened ahead of their expectations, and that naturally has disturbed the power balance here in the region. And that also naturally, because this competition has heightened and it's now coming down hopefully a little bit, but the main sort of competition between the US and China is in full swing, so to say. And if you recall, it was only in January or February that the US Senate passed that the Containment of China Act. Now that looks more like Cold War mentality, that you need to contain communism, now you need to contain China, and the propaganda and everything is part of that act, because it really shocked me to see that one of the the only superpower and the only country that cries about free media and this, that, and human rights and this, that, and the other, to allocate $300 million annually to propaganda against China and to churn out fake news and to discredit China and to discredit BRI and to discredit CPEC. So naturally, these are the challenges, but we have to see as Pakistanis where we want to go, how we want to develop, and what has been in our interest and what has not served our interest well in terms of our international relations. As our panelists have just said, that we have a history with the West. We have, we have a linkage with the West that will continue. And it is not a sensible policy to have one friend and leave everybody else. No, that is not what our, founding fathers, that's not the vision of founding fathers, and that is not the vision of Pakistan today. We would like to be friends with everybody and have, learn to live and cooperate in a manner with everybody that suits the interests of Pakistan. But it is always Pakistan first. And as far as CPEC is concerned, please understand, it is a gift of China to Pakistan. Whatever else you hear in the media, please take it with a pinch of salt. So thank you very much once again for hosting this here today and organizing this function. And I also like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for their valuable contribution. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Naumana Hashmi, and thank you so much, Ambassador Masood Khalid, for moderating the sessions. We are really thankful to Professor Zhang Jigan, who joined us, remained online with us in both sessions, and providing very, very important analysis on the allocated subject. And we are really thankful to Admiral Iftikhar Ahmed Rao for providing new perspectives on blue economy. And we are also very thankful to Dr. Khurram Iqbal for his very, very interesting and pertinent analysis on the subject. Now we close this seminar, and we have lunch on the rooftop of this hall. Please join us. Thank you very much for joining us.